Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 308, Chapter 312, The Emperor. Chapter 312, The Emperor. Over the next few days, Dudley kept turning that mysterious card over in his mind, to the point he barely paid attention to the fact that his birthday was almost here. This year, he received far more presents than ever before. A large portion came from his mom and dad. They had made a lot of money over the past year, and they certainly were not going to be stingy with Dudley, especially considering how crucial a role he had played in that big deal. On top of the family gifts, Dudley also received presents from Hermione and Ron, and even a box of sweets from Dumbledore. All in all, a surprising number of people had sent him birthday gifts. Harry's present was a set of magical textbooks he had bought long ago. The birthday banquet itself was lavish to the point of extravagance. Not because Dudley demanded it, but because his parents insisted. Using his birthday as an excuse, Vernon invited a host of his business partners, as well as some important potential clients with whom he had yet to close deals. To host this banquet, Vernon spent heavily, booking a grand hall in a 5-star hotel. Even with his current income, it was no small expense. But for Dudley, he thought it was worth every penny. Dudley did not let his parents down. His beyonder abilities were honed to perfection. Wherever Dudley went, there was hardly anyone who did not like him. Or rather, like this young man. He was no longer a boy. In recent months, Dudley had shot up in height and seemed to mature overnight. Dressed in a tailored suit, he looked every bit the young aristocrat, the sort of person people could not help but feel goodwill toward at a glance. By the time the banquet ended, Vernon's face hurt from smiling. They had secured almost every contract they had hoped for. For the next year, Vernon would not need to worry about finding orders. His only problem now would be production capacity. "Did you cast some kind of spell on them?" Harry asked quietly. The way those people fawned over Dudley was downright unreasonable. As long as he appeared in front of them, negotiations flowed without a hitch. "This is the benefit of being handsome," Dudley said, swirling the red wine in his glass. "Air." Harry could not help looking Dudley over seriously. He had to admit, Dudley did look very handsome now. Though only 13, his height was already approaching 1.70 m, and combined with his short blonde hair and sharply defined features, he definitely qualified as good-looking. Even more important was his bearing. Dudley carried a sort of innate nobility that was hard to describe. Even in a crowd, one glance was enough to pick him out. It was something most so-called handsome boys did not have, and it made Dudley stand out even more. "What are you staring at?" Dudley asked with a small laugh when he noticed Harry studying him. "Nothing." "You really do look quite good," Harry said honestly. "You are not bad either. You just have no idea how to tidy yourself up," Dudley said, smiling. "I will pass. You know my hair. No matter what I do, it ends up a mess," Harry replied helplessly. "Maybe you should try magic," Dudley suggested. "Maybe later," Harry said. He was not ready to fuss over his appearance yet. "Suit yourself," Dudley said, shrugging. When they got home after the banquet, Vernon and Petunia stayed up counting the evening's gains, so excited they could not sleep. It might have been Dudley's birthday, but the ones most delighted were his parents. "Mom, Dad, when Harry's birthday comes next month, you should throw him a birthday banquet like mine," Dudley said. "There is no need," Harry said quickly. He knew Dudley was only trying to keep him from feeling left out. Their birthdays were so different that any comparison would be brutal, but Harry genuinely did not mind. Of course, there was a hint of wistfulness, but he did not resent Dudley or his family for it. Vernon and Petunia exchanged thoughtful looks at Dudley's words. "Of course we should," Dudley pressed. "And you can invite more business partners along. Additionally, if you wish to expand production, you may consider approaching potential investors. I can help you handle them." "That is an excellent idea," Vernon said, eyes lighting up. He had been fretting over how to fulfill all those new orders. With investors, new options opened instantly. "No problem, Harry. We will throw you a beautiful birthday party," Vernon said. "Yes, leave it to us," Petunia added, patting her chest. "We will handle everything." "But..." Harry's cheeks flushed. "See. 2 birds with 1 stone," Dudley said. "We can invite Ron and Hermione too. What do you think?" "Ron is on holiday in Egypt," Harry reminded him. "Then we will invite Hermione," Dudley said, patting Harry's shoulder lightly. "It is settled." Harry's heart hammered in his chest. Would he really get a grand birthday next month? He could not help feeling a flutter of anticipation. That night, Dudley did not tinker with magic. He went to bed early. It was his birthday, after all, he did not want to exhaust himself. This was not that strange, dangerous world, and at his current strength, there were not many who could threaten him. Half asleep, Dudley's eyes snapped open. Pop. With a soft crack, Dobby appeared in his bedroom. "Oh. Mr. Dursley, happy birthday," Dobby said excitedly, offering up a gift he had prepared. It was a pair of rainbow-colored socks. "Thank you, Dobby," Dudley said, genuinely pleased as he accepted them. "And I also found some more of you-know-whose things," Dobby said, producing another small bundle. This time, there were far fewer items than before. "These are all things he who must not be named used that still have magical effects," Dobby said. Dudley examined them. There was a Rubik's Cube enchanted so that no matter how you scrambled it, it would instantly return to its solved state. There was also a teacup that was always full, though the porcelain was stained a deep yellow and looked filthy. "Thank you, Dobby," Dudley said with a smile. They were not Horcruxes, but that did not diminish Dobby's effort. At the very least, Dudley could now confidently rule out the possibility of other Horcruxes being stored in Malfoy Manor. "Mr. Dursley, I have more good news," Dobby said, eyes shining. "Just now, I finally found a chance to see the card in Mr. Malfoy's hand clearly. There is indeed writing on it. It says, The Emperor. Chapter 309, Chapter 313, The Desecrated Card. Chapter 313, The Desecrated Card. The Emperor?" Dudley's pupils shrank sharply. He froze on the spot. "Yes, that's right, Mr. Dursley. It said, The Emperor." "I saw the words very clearly," Dobby said excitedly, completely unaware of the change in Dudley's expression. "Wait. No. Something is off." Dudley's face shifted. He realized he had let his thoughts run ahead of him. His first instinct had been to assume that this Emperor card was one of Roselle's desecrated cards. But on second thought, how could Dobby possibly read the script on a desecrated card? That did not make sense. Although it was not entirely impossible. Once created, the desecrated cards had special ways of being activated. If they were not opened correctly, what they showed would appear perfectly normal. That might be one of their self-protection mechanisms, displaying only content that fits the viewer's knowledge, rather than any eerie or alien script that would draw attention. "Dobby, were there any other details on the card?" Dudley pressed. Right now, he needed to know exactly what he was dealing with. If the Trunsoist brass book could cross worlds with him, then it was entirely possible one of the desecrated cards had done the same. "No, Mr. Dursley. That was all I could see," Dobby said regretfully. "You have done brilliantly, Dobby. The information you brought is very useful," Dudley said sincerely. Without Dobby, he would almost certainly never have known that Lucius had gotten hold of an Emperor card. However incomplete the report was, it was more than enough to spark Dudley's interest and wariness. "Dobby, has Lucius done anything unusual these last couple of days? Or, compared to before he got the card, has his behavior changed in any particular way?" Dudley asked after a moment's thought. "Let Dobby think." Dobby tilted his head, looking thoughtful. "Master Malfoy has spent most of his time in the study lately, researching the card. He ordered that none of us was to disturb him. Today, I only got in because the missus told me to bring tea, and that was how I saw the card at all," Dobby said. "If there is something strange, maybe it is that Master has bought lots of potion ingredients and such. It feels like he is trying something," Dobby added. "Potion ingredients?" Dudley's expression changed at once. If the card in Lucius's hand really was a desecrated card, and if he had already activated it, then he would have seen the potion formulae recorded on it. In that case, buying ingredients and brewing potions would be a natural next step. But that was destined to fail. The potions from that strange world were effective because the materials they used contained Beyonder characteristics. That was the key. Simply taking a Beyonder characteristic, properly prepared, was enough to make someone a Beyonder. The auxiliary steps were there to lower the risk of losing control and to help the drinker pass through the transformatory phase more smoothly. In the magical world, however, no material contained Beyonder characteristics. Even if one had the recipe, one could not brew a potion capable of putting someone on a sequence pathway. Still, Dobby's report made Dudley even more certain that the card in Lucius's hand was not ordinary. "Dobby, can you touch that card?" Dudley asked, already expecting the answer. Sure enough, Dobby shook his head. "No. Master Malfoy always keeps it on him, or locks it in a magic box that no one else can open," Dobby said. Then his ears perked up. "But it is not completely impossible. If you need it, Mr. Dursley, Dobby can snatch it from his hand." He mimed a fierce grabbing motion, then beamed up at Dudley. Let's not do that for now," Dudley said. Dobby was proving quite useful as a hidden piece inside Malfoy Manor. Unless there was no other choice, he did not want to waste that by having Dobby openly grab the card and expose himself. Oh. It is getting late. Dobby must go back, the elf said after glancing at the time. Goodbye, Dobby, Dudley said quickly. Goodbye, Mr. Dursley. Dobby snapped his fingers and vanished from the bedroom. Once he was gone, Dudley sank into thought. I need a way to confirm whether that card is a desecrated card. Right now, there are two options. First, I sneak into Malfoy Manor myself and either steal it when Lucius is not around or just take it from him, Dudley mused. The second is to act through Draco. Draco was a believer of the Knight Emperor. After everything that had happened this past year, he trusted the Knight Emperor deeply. It was time to make use of that. With that decided, Dudley immediately chose to move through Draco first. If that failed, he could act personally. Having a plan, he acted at once. He stepped into the mysterious inner space. The mist there seemed even thicker than before. Following the link between himself and Draco, Dudley quickly located him. A moment later, Dudley was looking at Draco Malfoy, already fast asleep. Sleeping like a baby, are we? Dudley noted the smug little smile at the corner of Draco's mouth. After a brief pause, Dudley raised his wand slightly and cast the spell on the sleeping boy. Sleep in peace, he said softly. Draco, who had already been asleep, sank into an even deeper slumber, and Dudley followed the magic's pull into his dream. Thump, thump. The sound of fists pounding flesh echoed through the dream. Draco was in the middle of it, swinging punch after punch at a figure in front of him. It looked like several boys, all beaten to a pulp by Draco's iron fists. That will teach you to act smug. That will teach you to be famous. That will teach you to humiliate me. Die for me. Every time Draco's fist came down, he shouted, his face flushed with savage excitement. Then he leapt forward, straddled one of the boys, and rained blows down on his head. Admit it. Call me Dad. Dudley watched the scene, the corner of his mouth twitching. No matter how he looked at it, there was something uncomfortably familiar about this. Then his gaze settled on the boy pinned beneath Draco. Even after being punched beyond recognition, the handsome features were still just about discernible. It was, unmistakably, Dudley himself. Chapter 310, Chapter 314, A Follower's Mission. Chapter 314, A Follower's Mission. Admit you lost. Say you're not such a big shot. Still feel big now. Still dare to show off now. Malfoy's fists never stopped. He pummeled the Dudley beneath him until the boy could not even lift a hand in return and could only keep admitting defeat. So you come into your own dream to feel powerful, do you? Dudley muttered, curling his lip. His gaze slid to the other beaten figures nearby and, to his mild surprise, he saw Harry and Ron, both black and blue. Interestingly, Hermione was nowhere to be seen. So he does not hit girls. Call me Dad. Hurry up and call me Dad. Malfoy kept swinging. Dudley raised his hand in amusement and flicked his fingers. In that instant, he poured some of his own power into the dream bodies of Dudley, Harry, and Ron. The Dudley, pinned beneath Draco, suddenly sat bolt upright and drove a punch straight into Draco's chest, knocking him flat. Bang. Harry shot in from the side, his fist smashing into Draco's face so hard that a front tooth flew out, blood splattering everywhere. On the other side, Ron's kick landed squarely on Draco's backside, sending him flipping through the air. Do you admit it now? Call me Daddy. That's what you get for showing off. Dudley, Ron, and Harry joined forces and beat Draco until he was sobbing for his parents. This was his own dream, yet he was the one getting thrashed. Draco's world collapsed a little. Even the one place where he should have been able to vent his frustrations had betrayed him. Ah. With a shout, Draco jolted awake, tears still at the corners of his eyes. Dudley had already withdrawn from Draco's dream and was now in the mysterious hall, smiling faintly as he watched Malfoy's current state. Damned, bloody hell. Why can't I even beat them in my dreams? Draco pounded his fists against the mattress, his face flushed an ugly red. It was bad enough being beaten in real life. Now he could not even win in his own dreams and had been counter-beaten instead. It was beyond humiliating. Once Dudley decided the time was right, he stopped toying with Draco. A shaft of golden light descended, and an aura of sovereignty manifested out of nowhere, falling upon Draco's body. Draco stared at the sudden holy radiance in confusion. Then, as that terrifying sense of authority washed over him, he understood at once. He scrambled off the bed and dropped to his knees. Knight Emperor, Draco said reverently. Ever since he had been ensnared by that strange diary and tried countless ways to free himself, only to have all of them fail, it had been the Knight Emperor who had solved it with a flick of the hand. From that moment on, Draco's faith in the Knight Emperor had become absolute. There is something you must do, Dudley said, his voice altered into a distant, sacred tone. Draco's body trembled. What was meant to come had finally come. From the first time he had come into contact with the Night Emperor, he had been waiting for this day. He knew there was no free lunch in the world. If the Night Emperor helped him, he would eventually have to repay that favor. Yet for over a year, the Night Emperor had never asked anything of him, which left Draco terrified and at a loss as to how to improve his standing in the god's eyes. Now, at last, the mission he had dreamed of and dreaded had arrived. He was afraid the task would be too difficult and beyond him. He was also afraid it would be too easy and show no value at all. His heart was a tangle of contradictory emotions. "Please command me, Night Emperor," Draco said, voice shaking. "Your father, Lucius Malfoy, has obtained a card bearing the word Emperor." "I require that card," Dudley said directly. A god had no need for circling words. At the mention of his father's name, Draco nearly jumped. But hearing that the Night Emperor only wanted a card, he let out a small breath. "I will do everything in my power to complete your mission," Draco said carefully. "Very good. When it is done, recite my honorific name. Offer the card to me as a sacrifice," Dudley continued. "As you will," Draco answered at once. The next second, he felt the oppressive presence vanish from around him. The world went quiet again. Phew. Even though it was not his first time facing the Night Emperor, Draco still felt as though he had stared into an endless abyss. A card belonging to my father. How does he know about that? Draco frowned. He had not known his father had acquired any such thing. Lucius had never mentioned it. If it can catch the Night Emperor's interest, that card is definitely not ordinary, Draco thought, brow furrowing deeper. He did not hesitate over whether to carry out the task, only over how. He understood that anything the Night Emperor required must be extremely important, both to the god and to his father. But one thing was clear, if he failed the Night Emperor, his own life might well be forfeit. Compared to that, losing the card was a smaller price to pay. If his father was forced to choose between him and the card, Draco was certain Lucius would choose to lose the card, not his only son. With that thought, the guilt weighing on him lightened considerably. I do not know if father is asleep yet. I should go and see. He could not sleep anyway. If he stayed in bed, he would only end up getting beaten up by Dream Dudley again. It was better to get up and see whether he could steal that card. He knew that most of his father's important items were kept in the study. He even knew where the secret compartments were. He crept down the corridor and made his way silently toward Lucius's study. When he reached the door, a sliver of light was visible through the gap, which meant his father was still inside. Draco pressed himself to the door and listened. To his surprise, the room was utterly silent. No movement, no voices. Already asleep, he wondered. He turned the handle very slowly and eased the door open, trying not to make a sound. Light spilled out through the widening crack. Draco saw that the lamp on the desk was still burning, casting a pool of warm gold. In that glow, a figure sat holding what looked like a playing card, turning it over and examining it again and again. "How do I trigger the secret?" the figure muttered under his breath, clearly troubled by some puzzle. Draco stared at the card in his father's hand. He guessed this must be the one the Night Emperor wanted. He leaned forward slightly, trying to see whether the face bore the word Emperor. "What do you think you are doing?" Lucius's voice suddenly sounded right behind him. Chapter 311, Chapter 315, The Fugitive. Chapter 315, The Fugitive. Over the next few days, Dudley kept waiting for news from Draco. However, ever since that night, Draco had not contacted him again. Dudley did not worry too much. Stealing something from Lucius Malfoy was hardly easy work, and he had not given Draco a deadline. As long as that card eventually ended up in his hands, it was fine. In the meantime, his magic research made fresh progress. He had successfully replicated, through wizarding magic, the flame leap ability of the magician at sequence 7 on the full pathway. He had chosen this ability first because it was an excellent life-saving trick. With this spell, Dudley could launch many surprise attacks or retreats. The reason he had managed to complete this spell so quickly was largely thanks to his solid grasp of apparition. In essence, Flame Leap was a specialized form of apparition. Instead of simply moving a wizard to a place they imagined, it used fire as the medium for transit. The advantage was that there was almost no visible casting phase. The leap was completed in an instant, letting him evade lethal attacks at the last moment. Combined with blazing flames, he could also use it to instantly close the distance to an enemy and showcase the terrifying close combat prowess of the Black Emperor pathway. Overall, it was a substantial boost to his capabilities. Snap. Dudley flicked his fingers. Pale blue cold fire sprang up in his room. It shed no heat, in fact, it was slightly cooler than the surrounding air and would not ignite anything. It was perfect for practicing a fire-based spell indoors. Flame Shift. As he cast, his body vanished and reappeared inside a blossom of blue fire. Dudley continued to trigger the spell again and again, changing his position repeatedly until he had full control. Feels good. I can teach this to Harry and the others later, he thought. Diddykins, dinner is ready. I have made a very rich feast, Petunia called from downstairs. Dudley answered and headed down. It has really got hot these last few days, Harry said as soon as he saw Dudley, grumbling about the weather. Has it? Dudley reached out with his senses and realized the temperature in the kitchen was indeed rather high. You did not notice? Harry said, surprised. Oh, I set my bedroom to a constant temperature with magic, Dudley said with a small laugh. Harry's face said everything. Underage wizards were not allowed to use magic outside school, but Dudley had found a way to slide through the cracks. As long as he did not cast in front of outsiders and no one reported him to the ministry, there would be no consequences. He had done the same thing during last summer's holidays. This loophole, however, worked only for Dudley. Harry, when at home, could not use magic at all. It made him feel like he was suffocating. Especially when he watched Dudley use spell after spell to improve his daily life, the frustration only grew. Cool down at once, Dudley said softly in Hermes. Hum. In an instant, the stiflingly hot dining room cooled. A gentle, refreshing breeze filled the space. The oppressive heat vanished as if it had never been. It no longer felt like the height of summer, but rather the most pleasant days of spring. Oh, my Dudley, you are wonderful, Petunia said, feeling the sudden change and immediately realizing what he had done. She launched into an unrestrained stream of praise. This spell is brilliant. We will not need to install air conditioning now, Vernon said cheerfully. Saves us a bit of money, Dudley replied with a smile. Not bad at all, Harry muttered, a touch sour. If only he could cast spells at home, too. For now, that was an impossible dream. Breaking news. A highly dangerous prisoner has escaped from prison. If anyone sees this man, they must report it at once. We remind the public that Black is armed and extremely dangerous. Do not attempt to act on your own if you encounter him. A dedicated hotline has been opened. Anyone who sees Black should report immediately. The announcer's tone and expression were both grave as he read out the segment. You can tell he is a piece of work, Vernon snorted, glancing up at the television. On the screen, the man stared wild-eyed at the camera, long matted hair hanging in clumps, his thin face haggard and sharp. Dudley also looked up at the news. An escaped prisoner, nothing unusual about that in itself. The world produced fugitives every day. But if one appeared in a prime slot like this, they were clearly not ordinary. The fact that the authorities had even opened a special hotline just for sightings spoke volumes. Dudley's eyes skimmed over the screen, and he was about to look away and return to his food when his gaze froze. He found himself staring at the man's face. He was certain he had never met this man before. He had never seen that face with his own eyes. And yet, for some reason, a very subtle reaction stirred within him as he looked at it. Do I have some kind of connection to this man, he wondered. As a Beyonder on the Justiciar pathway, Dudley possessed a unique sensitivity in this area. He could sometimes perceive mysterious links that others could not. The fugitive on the screen gave him exactly that kind of feeling. But it was fleeting and indistinct. Without more detailed information, Dudley could not judge exactly what kind of connection it might be. It could be something like a distant blood relation with someone he had never met and never even known existed. Or perhaps this man was a friend of a friend, that kind of thing. In any case, it was hard to define. Sirius Black. Dudley read the name under the picture and committed it to memory. What is it? Interested in that fugitive? Vernon asked, seeming to notice Dudley's expression. He is extremely dangerous. It does not hurt to pay attention, Dudley said casually. He should not be a threat to us, should he? Harry asked, glancing at the screen. The man looked feral and vicious, but in Harry's mind, a muggle, no matter how deranged, posed little danger compared to a wizard. That is not guaranteed, Dudley said seriously. That faint, mysterious connection made him raise the threat level of this unknown fugitive in his mind. What if Sirius Black was not just an ordinary escapee? Chapter 312, Chapter 316, Shadows Beneath the Night. Chapter 316, Shadows Beneath the Night. Harry studied the man on the screen carefully, committing his features to memory. Since Dudley had said this, one might truly be dangerous, it was worth taking seriously. So far, Dudley had rarely been wrong. After dinner, Dudley used magic to help his mum clear the table, then went back up to his room to continue his research. He had already made a list of non-combat abilities from the Beyonder system that could feasibly be recreated with magic, and he was planning to tackle them one by one. Time slipped by unnoticed until it was late at night. All of a sudden, Dudley sensed the temperature outside drop by several degrees. That triggered the automatic temperature control charm he had set up. Why did the outside temperature suddenly fall, he muttered, frowning. Something was not right. He got up and went to the window. The street outside 4 Privet Drive was utterly still. A few street lamps cast pools of dull yellow light, breaking the pavement into alternating patches of brightness and shadow. Dudley tilted his head back and looked at the sky. At some point, clouds had rolled in over what had been a clear night, smothering the moonlight. After a moment's thought, he opened his door and stepped out. Creak. The door to the next room opened as well, and Harry poked his head out. "Dudley, is that your magic? I feel like the temperature in my room dropped a lot." "It's much more comfortable now," Harry said with a grin. He assumed his cousin had finally thought of him and extended the cooling charm to his room as well. "No," Dudley said, shaking his head. That particular spell was rather complex. It could not be arranged in a few minutes and needed constant infusions of spirituality to maintain. So far, he had only set it up in his own room. He had not yet had the time to look after any others. "Not you." Harry frowned. "Then why does it feel so much colder in there?" As soon as he finished speaking, he felt the air around him grow even chillier. Dudley's frown deepened. Now he could clearly sense that something was wrong. A dark, evil aura was becoming more distinct by the second. He suddenly lifted his gaze to the sky. There was something moving quickly up there. The cold, malignant presence was pouring down from that direction. The drop in temperature inside their rooms had to be connected to those things. What can affect the temperature over such a wide area? Dudley narrowed his eyes. It was July, the hottest time of the year. Yet whatever was flying overhead had forced the ambient temperature down across an entire stretch of neighborhood. That meant the energy they were exuding was very strong. "Outside," Dudley said, and ran straight for the front garden. Harry hurried after him. They both looked up, but could see nothing. Overhead, the sky was a solid black, as if a dark curtain had been drawn across it. "Do you feel that?" Harry asked. He could not see anything, but a bone-deep chill and a crawling fear were creeping into his chest. "They are up there," Dudley said grimly. He was now certain something powerful was circling above them, sweeping back and forth as though searching for something. "So cold," Harry said. When he spoke, his breath steamed visibly in the air. "Nimbus 2001, come," Dudley said. Pop. A broom shot out of the cellar and hovered in front of him. "Dudley, what are you doing?" Harry asked, startled, as Dudley grabbed the broom. "I am going up to take a look." "You stay here. If anything dangerous happens, do not hesitate." "Use magic," Dudley said. "But," Harry began. Before he could finish, Dudley had already kicked off and shot into the sky. "What am I supposed to do now?" Harry muttered, watching Dudley vanish into the night. All he could do was pace helplessly. He could not legally use magic, nor could he contact any other wizards. All he could do was stand on the ground and watch Dudley fly alone into the dark. Wait. A thought struck him. If he did use magic here, would that draw ministry wizards to them? It might. But that came with a great deal of risk. Unless he was certain Dudley needed help, throwing his own neck on the line like that would be a poor trade. High above, Dudley rode the broom straight up into the night. His control of a broom was no worse than Harry's. He simply had less interest in Quidditch. The bitter wind howled past his ears. After climbing only a few dozen meters, he felt a drastic shift in the air. Cold. Malicious. And he focused on his own state and suddenly realized something had gone wrong with his emotions. "My happiness is being drained away." His face changed. The shift in his mood was not trivial. It was directly disturbing his spirit body, shaking his sense of self, and pushing him to the edge of losing control. Whoosh. A huge black shadow swept over his head, racing through the sky. In that instant, the cold pierced him to the core. It felt as if he would never be happy again. For one brief moment, the urge to give up everything washed over him. To abandon himself, abandon all he had now, and let the whispering voice in the dark swallow him whole. Life seemed suddenly meaningless. The climb up the sequences felt empty. Everything was sliding toward an irreversible end. Whoosh. The enormous black shape swooped again, diving straight at him. At that moment, Dudley's frozen right hand twitched. A ring slipped from his finger into his palm. Solar halo. Warmth blossomed from the ring, pushing the frost out of his limbs and restoring the summer heat to his senses. Solar holy light. Dudley thrust up his right hand. Brilliant golden radiance erupted from the ring. Boom. A column of golden light crashed down from the heavens, slamming into the monstrous shadow. Its withered body burst into flames. A shrill, alien screech tore through the night as the creature writhed. The holy light of the sun burned along its frame, and the pure, cleansing aura stripped away the evil and chill, peeling the darkness off its body and burning it to ash. In that blazing light, Dudley finally saw it clearly. A warped, humanoid thing. Chapter 313, Chapter 317, Dementors. Chapter 317, Dementors. The creature wore a long, black cloak. Its skin looked as if it had been soaked in water until it rotted, its hands were crusted and scabbed, and beneath the hood, there were no facial features at all, only a round, gaping hole where its mouth should have been. When he drew close to it, Dudley had felt as though every happy memory he possessed was being sucked away, leaving him drowning in bleak, bottomless despair. With the appearance of the solar halo, however, that sensation had eased a great deal. The sun pathway's powers were innately opposed to such dark beings, and the purifying effect contained within the solar holy light possessed a devastating lethality against them. Dudley watched the monster burning within the pillar of golden light and forced himself to calm down. It was his first time seeing such a thing, but he had already guessed what it was. A Dementor. The Wardens of Azkaban. He remembered how Hagrid had once described his time in Azkaban, and what Dudley had just experienced matched Hagrid's words almost perfectly. But what was a Dementor doing here? According to Hagrid, Dementors only existed at Azkaban, and without orders from the Ministry of Magic, they never left the prison. Dudley's heart stirred. He looked farther into the sky. Several kilometers out, he sensed another cold aura approaching. Clearly, there was more than one Dementor in the area. If Dementors never appear anywhere else without Ministry orders, then the fact they are here must mean this is an official Ministry deployment, Dudley thought. He glanced back at the Dementor burning in the distance and another image flashed across his mind, the fugitive in the news, with his gaunt, wasted face, matted long hair, and wild, enraged eyes glaring at the camera. That fugitive, he is not just a Muggle criminal. He is an escapee from Azkaban. At last, everything clicked into place. Only an Azkaban escapee would warrant this level of attention and a dedicated hotline. At the same time, the Dementors had left the prison and were sweeping the countryside, hunting for the fugitive named Sirius Black. Black. Of course. I should have realized sooner, Dudley murmured. He should have noticed that surname at once. Black was the name of an old pureblood family. He had not connected the dots before because the wanted notice had come from the Muggle news. It was hard to immediately associate it with the wizarding world. It seems the upper levels of the magical world and the Muggle world are much more closely linked than most people imagine, Dudley said softly. In the distance, the Dementor consumed by solar holy light was still thrashing, badly wounded but not dead. Does this count as assaulting an officer? Dudley wondered. Faced with such a vile, dark creature, any wizard's first instinct would be to destroy it as quickly as possible. Who would think of it as a prison guard? Given the situation, though, explaining this later might be a bit awkward. Since I have already struck once, I might as well finish it, Dudley decided. His eyes hardened. He raised his hand and called down a second shaft of sunlight. Boom. Under the blazing radiance, the Dementor's decayed flesh looked even more grotesque, as if the smell of rot billowed across the sky. When the light faded, the Dementor had no strength left to resist. It died beneath the holy radiance and dissolved into nothing. There was no defense against this kind of counter. Solar holy light was a perfect bane to such dark, evil entities. 2 beams were all it had taken to annihilate a Dementor. These dark magical creatures are truly terrifying, Dudley thought, remembering how he had felt only moments ago. He could not help a lingering shiver of fear. If a large number of them appeared at once, even he would struggle to cope. It could very easily push him towards losing control. Still, my memories are not so easy to feed on. Even in my happiest recollections, there are depths of strangeness you cannot bear. If you really tried to absorb them, who would die first is far from certain, Dudley thought grimly. He scanned the sky around him. Seeing no further Dementors, he steered his broom downward, heading back to the ground. A short while later, he landed beside Harry. What hap? Harry had barely spoken when Dudley cut him off and dragged him back into the house. If anyone asks you anything later, you did not see anything and you do not know anything. Understand? Dudley said at once. Harry blinked, then nodded. He did not know exactly what had just happened, but from the look on Dudley's face, it was serious. Back to your room, Dudley added. He tossed the broom. It flew away on its own and returned to the storage space. Seeing that, Harry turned and went back into his bedroom. A few minutes later, Dudley was also back inside his own room, and the house fell into silence. Not long after, the cold returned, even harsher than before. The temperature dipped further. This time, however, no one appeared outside the window. Lying in bed, Harry felt a wave of inexplicable sadness rising in his chest. His emotions slid slowly towards a bottomless pit. It was as though every happy memory he had was drifting away from him, and all the warmth in his life had been extinguished. Pop, pop, pop. Several soft cracks sounded, and a handful of cloaked figures appeared on the lawn of 4 Privet Drive. At their head stood a tall black man. Dudley recognized him at once. Kingsley. Are we sure it is all right to go straight in like this? One of the others whispered. It is an emergency. There is no choice, another replied. Never thought this would get so messy. Bloody nuisance, a third muttered. Kingsley scanned the area, his gaze coming to rest on the upstairs windows of Dudley and Harry's rooms. A moment later, Dudley appeared at his window, locking eyes with Kingsley down below. Oh no, we have been seen, one Auror hissed. Relax. It is Dudley Dursley, another said quickly. We are fine. Dudley looked down at Kingsley with a faintly puzzled expression. After a brief pause, Kingsley raised a hand, beckoned, and then pointed meaningfully towards Harry's window. Dudley understood at once and stepped away. A short time later, the front door opened, and Dudley and Harry came out together to meet them on the lawn. What happened? Dudley asked first. A very dangerous fugitive has escaped. We are tracking him, Kingsley said. As he finished, his eyes flicked instinctively to Harry. And, he added, it seems something has gone wrong with our prison guards in this area. Did either of you notice anything just now? Chapter 314, Chapter 318, Ministry Inspection. Chapter 318, Ministry Inspection. No, we did not notice anything unusual, Dudley said, shaking his head. Yeah, we do not know anything, Harry added quickly. You see. Told you they would not know a thing, one of the wizards behind Kingsley muttered. Asking two kids about something like this was never going to yield much. Dudley, not even you sensed anything? Kingsley asked, a hint of disappointment in his tone. If I have to say something, then I did feel the temperature drop, and my emotions went strange. It felt like I could not be happy anymore, Dudley answered honestly. That is the Dementor's influence. Looks like it really did come through here, a witch explained. As expected. Kingsley said quietly. He had been sure that, if there was anything to discover here, Dudley would be the one to find it. Last time there had been trouble, Dudley had helped them a great deal. At that thought, Kingsley's mouth twitched. Last time trouble had broken out, Dudley had been nearby. Now, with this incident, Dudley was here again. The coincidence was almost unnerving. What is a Dementor? Harry asked, unable to hold back his curiosity. They are the guards of Azkaban, Kingsley said. Dark magical creatures that feed on a person's happy memories and drag them into despair. So they came here to hunt the fugitive? Dudley asked, though he already knew the answer. Correct, Kingsley said with a nod. The problem is, we have not caught the fugitive, and one Dementor has gone missing. Looks like we will not be getting any rest this month, a witch grumbled. Could a Dementor go rogue? Dudley asked. They do not seem the sort to obediently guard Azkaban forever. No. Dementors do not just mutiny. And they do not simply vanish either. As far as we know, there is no spell in existence that can kill them, Kingsley said. So they are unkillable. Dudley frowned. Near enough, Kingsley replied. No wizard has ever managed it. Maybe Dumbledore could, but the cost would be high. When we encounter Dementors, we normally use the Patronus charm to drive them off. We cannot destroy them. Most magic has no real effect on them. Dudley's eyes narrowed. He had just killed something that supposedly could not be killed. Thinking back, if not for the solar halo, it really would have been hard for him to finish one off. Many of his other Beyonder abilities would have done little against the creature. Dementors do not have souls, so the killing curse does not work on them, the witch added. I see, Dudley said with a nod. If they truly lack souls, then they would naturally be immune to many conventional killing spells. If you have not noticed anything else, we will. Kingsley began. Before he could finish, several sharp cracks echoed in the night. Everyone turned towards the sound. Out on the road beyond the garden of number 4, several figures had appeared. The man in front looked like an old lion. His tawny hair and thick brows were streaked with gray, and behind his gold-rimmed glasses his sharp eyes gleamed. Though he walked with a slight limp, there was a long-striding, confident air about him that made it clear he was a keen, hard sort of wizard. Scrimgeour, what are you doing here? One of the Aurors blurted. At the sight of the newcomer, Kingsley's expression grew serious. Scrimgeour would not have come in person unless there had been a development, and almost certainly not a good one. What's happened? Kingsley asked, his voice low. Dudley and Harry both turned to look at the newcomer. From the way the others reacted to him, Dudley understood at once who he was, the wizard in charge of the Auror office at the Ministry. The missing Dementor has been found, said Rufus Scrimgeour grimly. It's dead. It has been confirmed that the missing Dementor is dead, Rufus Scrimgeour said grimly. It has been confirmed that the missing Dementor is dead, Rufus Scrimgeour said grimly. What? Every wizard present gaped in shock. Only moments ago, they had been explaining to Dudley and Harry that Dementors could not be killed. Now their superior had arrived to announce that the one missing Dementor was dead. It was a slap in the face, and none of them could understand how such a thing was possible. We do not yet know exactly what happened, Scrimgeour went on. According to several witnesses, they saw something fly up into the sky, and then there was a flash of light. Dudley felt a twinge in his chest. He had not bothered with concealment when he flew up earlier. It was entirely possible someone had seen him. Fortunately, he had moved fast. No one should have gotten a clear look at his face. You mean, someone flew up there and killed a Dementor, the witch behind Kingsley said, her voice filled with disbelief. If I am relaying the statements correctly, that is what they claim, Scrimgeour replied coolly, giving her a brief look. Every wizard in this area will have to be questioned, he said, his gaze shifting to rest on Harry and Dudley. Scrimgeour, surely we can spare these two. Kingsley said quickly. They are underage. If they had used magic, the trace would have picked it up. No one is exempt from inspection. Those are the rules, Scrimgeour said in a tone that brooked no argument. We do not know how the Dementor died. It may be that whatever spell was used would not trigger the trace at all, he added, looking directly at Harry and Dudley. Scrimgeour, this is Harry Potter and his brother. Do you truly understand what such an accusation implies? Kingsley said, frowning. There was nothing wrong with following protocol, but Scrimgeour was being excessively rigid. To suspect two underage wizards was one thing. To suspect these two was another entirely. This was Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the wizard who had defeated Lord Voldemort. I understand your point, Scrimgeour said, but we still need to check their wands as a matter of procedure. Seeing that Scrimgeour had made up his mind, Kingsley could only fall silent. He glanced apologetically at Dudley and Harry. All right. We have no objection. You can examine our wands, Dudley said with a shrug. Who needed a wand to cast every spell, anyway? I am fine with it too, Harry said, nodding. Chapter 315, Chapter 319, Reviewing Previous Spells. Chapter 319, Reviewing Previous Spells. Dudley and Harry went back to their rooms, fetched their wands, and returned to the garden. I will go first, Harry said, taking the initiative as he handed his wand over. Scrimgeour took it, but did not cast anything immediately. Instead, he asked, when was the last time you used a spell, and what spell was it? Harry thought for a moment. It would have been back at school. I do not remember exactly what the last spell was. Stupefy, maybe. He genuinely was not sure. Sometimes he cast spells without using his wand at all, so the exact last spell he had channeled through it was fuzzy. Scrimgeour nodded and did not press further. This was Harry Potter standing in front of him. He was only carrying out a formality, not seriously suspecting Harry. Prior incantato, Scrimgeour incanted. A faint image shimmered at the tip of Harry's wand. It was Stupefy, Kingsley confirmed. Scrimgeour nodded again and handed the wand back without further comment. Seeing this, Dudley passed his own wand over. The last time I used it was also at Hogwarts, but I do not remember exactly what the spell was, Dudley said with a shrug. Ever since leaving Hogwarts, every spell he had cast had been wandless. He had nothing to fear from this check. You do not remember? Scrimgeour said, giving him a searching look. Then he touched his own wand to Dudley's and spoke. Prior incantato. A twisted shimmer of light rose from the tip of Dudley's wand. Apparition, one of the aurists blurted. All of them looked surprised, even Kingsley, though he recovered quickly. He knew Dudley's magical talent and was not shocked that he had mastered apparition. Oh, so it was apparition, Dudley said, nodding. He was glad it had not been some overwhelmingly destructive curse. When did you learn that, and who taught you? Scrimgeour asked. In the wizarding world, apparition was normally taught only to witches and wizards over 17. How old was Dudley now? He had only just turned 13. Being able to use apparition so skillfully at that age was almost unheard of. I learned it at Hogwarts. I begged Professor McGonagall to teach me, Dudley replied honestly. Professor McGonagall, one of the aurists repeated. At the familiar name, several of them pulled expressions that mixed awe and unease. From that alone, it was clear most of them had once been her students. I will verify that with her, Scrimgeour said, looking Dudley in the eye. Feel free, Dudley said, rolling a shoulder. Prior incantato. Scrimgeour suddenly cast the spell again, forcing the wand to reveal the spell before last. Scrimgeour, that exceeds the required scope, Kingsley said at once. Checks like this were routine, but they almost always stopped at the most recent spell. No one chained the spell twice like Scrimgeour just had. He had gone beyond what the law strictly demanded. Dudley's face cooled. This Scrimgeour was starting to feel a little too targeted. But the spell had already been cast, and everyone was watching Dudley's wand. They were all curious now as to what his second-to-last spell had been. Boom. A mass of terrifying fire exploded out of the wand tip, bathing the garden in light. Oh, Merlin's beard. Good grief. The Aurors could not help crying out at the sight. Fiend fire, Kingsley said in shock. Dark magic, Scrimgeour said. His gaze on Dudley was no longer neutral but edged with a predator's intensity, like an old lion that had finally scented prey. Dudley's eyes narrowed. He did not even remember using fiend fire with his wand. If he had, he would have immediately dispelled it from the wand's record when they arrived. All eyes swung to him. Apparition at his age might be chalked up to extraordinary talent. Fiend fire was something else entirely. That was a step into the forbidden zone of magic. There was no way Hogwarts would have taught such a curse to its students, and Dudley had only just finished his second year. Did Professor McGonagall teach you that as well? Scrimgeour asked. Or did you steal it from somewhere? Dark magic was one thing. The fact that Dudley could already successfully cast fiend fire at this stage was another, and it shocked the assembled Aurors. Dudley, what is going on? Kingsley stepped forward, placing himself partly between Dudley and Scrimgeour. That one. Professor Dumbledore taught me. There were special circumstances, Dudley said after a brief pause. He had not expected Prior Incantato to dredge up fiend fire. If he had, he would have used a Beyonder ability instead of the wand. Now things were complicated. For the moment, he had no choice but to use Dumbledore's name as a shield. Dumbledore, is it? Scrimgeour's eyes slit further. Dudley is very close to Professor Dumbledore. The headmaster often tutors him privately, Harry spoke up from the side. I can vouch for that. Perhaps we should simply ask Professor Dumbledore, Kingsley added. Secretly learning dark magic, especially a highly offensive spell, was a serious matter. But if it had been formally taught by someone as respected as Dumbledore, the situation would have changed. Dark magic was not entirely forbidden in the wizarding world. Spells used for research were allowed, and Aurors themselves were often required to learn certain dark curses for critical moments. I will confirm it with Dumbledore, Scrimgeour said. For now, we will be holding on to your wand. As he spoke, several soft cracks sounded again from the street. A few figures appeared at the far end of Privet Drive. What a wretched night. No, that is wrong. The last year or two have all been dreadful, one man was saying. Minister, things may not be that bad yet. At least we still hold most of the wizarding world, another replied. They walked towards the group as they talked. One of them was Albus Dumbledore. The other was Cornelius Fudge, Minister for Magic. Chapter 316, Chapter 320, Researching Dark Magic. Chapter 320, Researching Dark Magic. Minister Fudge. Professor Dumbledore. Seeing the two men, Kingsley felt a small knot of tension ease in his chest. Dudley had certainly made an impression tonight. One fiend fire, and suddenly, Kingsley had no idea which way to turn. Kingsley, and Scrimgeour, Fudge said, looking around. We have been briefed on the situation. We already have people investigating the Dementor incident. There is no need to continue checks here. Also, we plan to station a few Aurors in the area to to prevent any further accidents, he added, his eyes flicking in Harry's direction. Minister, we have a new development, Scrimgeour said at once, glancing towards Dudley. This underage wizard, Dudley Dursley, has already learnt the dark curse fiend fire as well as apparition. What? Fudge stared at Dudley, visibly shocked. Just now, I used Prior Incantato on his wand. The last two spells it showed were apparition and fiend fire, Scrimgeour explained. For a moment, Fudge seemed unable to process this. Then he turned to Dumbledore. In addition, Mr. Dursley claims he learnt apparition from Professor McGonagall, while fiend fire. Scrimgeour began. Fiend fire was my doing, Dumbledore said calmly, cutting him off. I taught it to Dudley. For a heartbeat, the garden fell utterly silent. There were specific reasons. I taught Dudley fiend fire to meet a particular need. That should not be a problem, should it? We are permitted to research dark magic, Dumbledore went on mildly. This is probably not against the rules, Fudge said, frowning. He was still reeling from the fact that a second-year student had mastered 2 advanced spells. It was taking him a moment to catch up. Minister, this is against protocol. Scrimgeour said coldly. Is it? Dumbledore said softly. If dark magic is used solely for research purposes, it does not constitute a violation. But. Scrimgeour tried again, only for Fudge to cut across him with an impatient wave. That is enough, Rufus. We will leave it at that. We have more urgent matters than this and cannot waste all night here, Fudge said. He had never been particularly fond of the head of the Auror office. If not for Scrimgeour's competence, he would have liked to replace him long ago. Dumbledore, where was I? Fudge asked. You were saying you intended to station Aurors here to prevent any further incidents, Dumbledore prompted at once. Ah, yes. Quite right. This area has had too many problems. We must assign some auras to it, Fudge said. Even a Dementor has died. Frightening business. He lowered his voice slightly as he spoke to Dumbledore. Tell me, do you think it could be? Dumbledore shook his head. Unlikely. For the moment, I have no idea why a Dementor would have been killed. Very well, Fudge said, then turned to Kingsley. Security here will be your responsibility, Kingsley. Make sure this area is kept safe. Yes, Minister, Kingsley replied at once. Scrimgeour, you will come back to the ministry with me. There is plenty waiting on your desk, Fudge said. Scrimgeour's expression soured, but he could not openly defy the minister. He could only swallow his anger. You have great magical potential, Fudge said to Dudley before leaving. I hope you will serve the ministry one day. I would be glad to, Minister, Dudley replied with a pleasant smile. Fudge seemed quite satisfied with that attitude. Pop, pop. A series of soft cracks later, Dumbledore, Fudge, and the others disapparated. Throughout, Dudley and Dumbledore had hardly exchanged a word. Even so, certain messages had already passed silently between them in the brief meeting of their eyes. Once the rest of the wizards had gone, Dudley turned to Kingsley. Mr. Shacklebolt, is there something special about Sirius Black? Why is everyone reacting so strongly to his escape? Dudley asked. From everything he had just seen, Black was clearly no ordinary fugitive. Otherwise, the Minister for Magic and Dumbledore would not both have been stirred into action. And the Ministry had actually authorized the Azkaban guards to leave the prison and search the countryside. That was almost unthinkable. Nothing about this felt normal. And from the way several people had spoken, their gazes drifting now and then to Harry, Dudley was certain Black had some connection with his cousin. Dudley, I cannot tell you the details, Kingsley said. What I can say is that Black is an extremely dangerous wizard. In truth, he is powerful and exceptionally brutal. His escape is a disaster for everyone. For the time being, we will be taking turns patrolling the area to keep you safe. Please do not go out unnecessarily. It is best to avoid accidents. His expression was very solemn. All right. I understand, Dudley said with a nod. As for Black himself, Dudley was not particularly worried. With his dual sequence 6 strength, most wizards were no threat to him. It was unlikely this Black was on Voldemort's level, and Dudley saw no reason to be overly anxious. After saying goodbye to Kingsley, Harry followed Dudley back into the house and up to their rooms. Dudley, about Black. Harry began, uncertain what exactly he wanted to ask, only that something had to be said. Do not worry. I am here, Dudley said. And do not underestimate yourself either. We are still the wizards who took down a basilisk. Add in your wandless casting, and even if we do run into him, it will not be a one-sided slaughter. Harry said, nodding. Some of the tension in his chest eased. Over the next few days, Dudley frequently noticed traces of wizards moving around the neighborhood. He did not disturb the auras and simply behaved as if they were not there. However, their presence meant he could no longer safely experiment with magic. At such close range, there was a real chance he would be caught, and that would be impossible to explain away. More than 10 days passed. Harry's birthday was drawing close, but there was still no word from Malfoy Manor. Dudley began to feel that something was off. Perhaps it is time to contact Draco directly, he thought. Just as he came to that decision, the very next night a crisp crack sounded in his room. A small figure appeared at the foot of his bed. Dobby. Dudley said, unable to hide his delight. With Dobby here, he could finally find out everything that had been happening at Malfoy Manor. Chapter 317, Chapter 321, Changes at the Manor. Chapter 321, Changes at the Manor. Dobby, has anything happened at Malfoy Manor recently? Dudley asked. There had been no word from Draco, and even Dobby had not shown up for some time. Clearly, something unexpected must have happened at the manor. Yes, Mr. Dursley. Malfoy Manor has not been very good lately. I only managed to slip away for a short while yesterday, Dobby said. Young Master Draco was caught spying on the Master's study in the middle of the night. The Master was very, very angry and locked him up. He still has not been let out. What? Dudley's expression changed. Draco had clearly gone to Lucius's study to steal the card after receiving Dudley's order and had been discovered. Even Draco himself probably had not imagined that trying to lift that card would earn him such a severe punishment. Since that incident, the Master has conducted a strict purge of the entire manor, Dobby went on. He has dismissed many servants. Even the mistress was dragged into it because of young Master Draco. And you? Dudley asked, looking more closely at Dobby. He could see that the house elf was carrying his own share of injuries. Oh, Mr. Dursley is such a good wizard. Only you would think to ask about Dobby, Dobby said, eyes turning misty, his expression sorrowful. The master has been in a terrible temper, always shouting and raging. All of us have been beaten, he added quietly. Vulnera Senator, Dudley murmured, wandlessly casting a healing spell to ease some of the worst-looking wounds. He was careful not to mend everything. If Lucius noticed Dobby had recovered too quickly, it could easily draw even harsher punishment. Dobby, if you want to leave, you can tell me. You do not have to stay at Malfoy Manor, Dudley said. Dobby was a free house elf now. He no longer had to work there. It was Dudley's task that had kept him inside the manor, working day and night while also enduring Lucius's abuse. The thought left Dudley more than a little uneasy. No, no, no. Dobby wishes to continue this mission. It is Dobby's honor, the elf said hurriedly. In that case, since you are working for me now, how about I pay you? Dudley said after a moment's thought. We will start counting from the day you became free. Dobby stared, stunned. He had clearly never expected Dudley to offer him wages. If you do not like money, we can forget it. Or I can pay you with something else instead, Dudley said quickly, worried Dobby might take the offer as an insult. It is not that, Mr. Dursley. Dobby is just, very happy, Dobby said, bouncing on the spot in excitement. As long as you like it, Dudley said, the corner of his mouth twitching a little. Dobby's wild swings between misery and delight were always a challenge to respond to. So, other than Draco being locked up, has anything else happened at the manor? Dudley steered them back to the main issue. The master has completely sealed off the study, Dobby said. No one is allowed near it, and he has put spells on that part of the house. And the master's temper has been very strange lately. Oh, I said that already. He is, very suspicious. Of everything. Dobby's ears twitched as he spoke. Dudley nodded. Dobby did not know much, but for a house elf, he had already noticed quite a few important details. It seems the best way to find out what is going on at Malfoy Manor is to go there myself, Dudley thought. Dobby, if I wanted to sneak into the manor, would there be an opportunity? He asked aloud. Mr. Dursley wants to enter Malfoy Manor. Dobby's voice shot up half an octave. That is far too dangerous. The manor is full of powerful magic now. Even we house elves must be very, very careful. If you go in, you could be killed, Dobby said, his face unusually stern. My strength is not bad. I can handle most situations. And I still have you as my inside men, Dudley said lightly. That. Dobby's brow furrowed as he considered it. If Dudley broke in alone, he would likely be discovered quickly. He might not fear the Malfoys or their allies, but if a fight broke out, it would become very difficult for him to quietly investigate. Given the Malfoy family's standing, a confrontation would soon draw more wizards, perhaps members of other pureblood families or even Aurors from the Ministry. All in all, avoiding open conflict would be best. That would give Dudley the time he needed to check the manor thoroughly, search for clues about Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes, and get his hands on that Emperor card. If Mr. Dursley truly wishes to enter the manor, it is not impossible, Dobby said at last. I can wait until there is a time when the master and mistress are all away, then bring you in and help you avoid as many magical traps as possible. But if we do that, I do not think I will be able to keep working there afterwards, Dobby added. Dudley nodded. That is fine. After this trip, it is unlikely I will need you to stay at Malfoy Manor as a spy. In that case, I understand, Dobby said, eyes brightening. If I see a good opportunity in the next few days, I will come to find you. All right, Dudley said. With that, Dobby bade him farewell, snapped his fingers, and vanished from the bedroom. It seems I really do need to visit Malfoy Manor, Dudley thought. But I do not have to go as myself. He still had a good amount of Polyjuice potion from Hermione. That would let him take on a different face entirely. He could also bring Cole and the others. In a critical moment, they might prove useful. Having settled on going to the manor, Dudley began to work through the details, quietly drafting a plan. Before that, though, there is one other matter to settle, he murmured. He moved to the window and looked out. Though the street was pitch black, Dudley knew that more than a few eyes were watching number 4 from the shadows. Kingsley was responsible for security here, but he could not be on duty every hour of the day. Other Aurors were stationed nearby as well. Among them, there were certainly people loyal to Scrimgeour. The head of the Auror office clearly harbored suspicions about Dudley. If Dudley wanted to slip away from Privet Drive, he would have to deal with the Aurors first. He opened his bedroom door. Petunia and Vernon were still awake downstairs, seemingly in the middle of discussing Harry's birthday party. Mum, could you make some sweets tomorrow? I want to give them to a few friends, Dudley asked as he came down. No problem at all, my darling, Petunia said at once. Chapter 318, Chapter 322, Bribing the Aurors. Chapter 322, Bribing the Aurors. The next morning, Petunia bustled about the kitchen from dawn, making a whole tray of delicious sweets. These are really good, Dudley said after tasting one. As long as you like them, have some more, Petunia said warmly. Half the summer's gone, and I still haven't managed to put some proper weight on you. It makes a mother's heart ache. She cupped Dudley's face with both hands, worry in her eyes. Just look at Harry. He has filled out nicely. His color is so much better now, she added, turning to beam at Harry. Air. Harry's mouth twitched as he glanced at Dudley. He did not mention that half of what Petunia made for Dudley somehow ended up in his own stomach. That was why he had put on nearly 10 pounds in a month. Dudley looked him over and said with a grin, "You were too skinny before. Now you look just right. At least there is some flesh on your cheeks. Is it really good to get too fat, though?" Harry muttered. "You have not only put on weight, you have grown taller. This is when you are meant to be growing. Eating more is a good thing," Dudley said. "Harry, your birthday is in 3 days. Do you have any birthday wishes?" Petunia asked. "Nothing special. Things are already very good," Harry replied with a smile. "I see. In that case, I will arrange the party as I see fit." "I hope you will like it," Petunia said, excitement sparkling in her eyes. "All right, Aunt Petunia." "I am sure I will," Harry said, smiling back. The way things were now felt more than enough. He still remembered how, at the end of last term, he had not even wanted to come home. Back then, he was not happy here and would rather have stayed at school. This year was different. He actually found himself looking forward to the holidays. This house was warm in a way that was different from Hogwarts, but no less real. Dudley picked up the box of neatly wrapped sweets from the table and headed for the door. "I am going to take some to my friends," he said. Harry went with him. Petunia assumed he meant his old neighborhood friends, so she said little, only reminding Dudley to be back early. Out on the street, Dudley's eyes swept the surroundings. It did not take long for him to spot a figure behind a tree not far away. He walked over at a relaxed pace. "Hello," he said. "Hello," the witch replied. She had blonde hair and wore aura robes. Dudley recognized her as the witch who had stood behind Kingsley that night. "These are some sweets my mum made. I brought you a few. Hope you like them," Dudley said, offering the box. "Oh. They look wonderful. I have never tried Muggle food before," she said, pleasantly surprised. She took the sweets, opened the box, and tried one. "This is really good," she said. Her gaze on Dudley softened noticeably, a spontaneous warmth rose in her chest, and she felt an inexplicable fondness for the boy. "Thank you, Dudley. I love them. And thank you as well, Harry," she added. Dudley chatted with her for a while, gently nudging the conversation until she drifted away from the immediate vicinity of the house and further down the road to keep watch there instead. After that, he repeated the same routine, tracking down each aura posted nearby one by one and delivering sweets to them. It did not all go smoothly. The last aura he approached refused the offer outright. He eyed Dudley's sudden goodwill with deep suspicion and would not accept the box at all. From that alone, Dudley guessed he was probably one of Scrimgeour's men, sent specifically to keep an eye on him. "If you do not like sweets, I can bring you something else," Dudley said brightly. "No need," the middle-aged aura said, shaking his head. "My mum always told me that if you receive help from someone, you must give something back," Dudley went on. "You are here guarding our safety. This is just a small token of thanks. It is not necessary. Go back inside. Do not bring anything else," the aura said again. Stubborn as a rock. Dudley's eyes narrowed slightly. "You do not have to eat them. But please accept them," Dudley said, thrusting the box forward again. This time, his tone was firmer, carrying a faint note of command beneath the politeness. The aura frowned, looked at the sweets, and finally reached out to take them. As soon as the box touched his hand, his expression changed. "Thank you," he said, managing a small smile. At the same time, a flicker of embarrassment crossed his face. Why had he been so harsh with a child? This was clearly a polite, well-brought-up boy trying to show gratitude. Seeing that, the corner of Dudley's mouth tipped up. If the aura had still refused, Dudley had been prepared to simply throw the sweets to him. It was not as if bribery required the target's active cooperation. As long as the gift reached his hands, the effect would take hold. It would just have looked a bit less dignified. Taking advantage of the charm already working through the gift, Dudley made small talk, subtly drawing the men out. Sure enough, he soon confirmed that Scrimgeour had assigned him here. Dudley did not dig further. Instead, he suggested that the aura move his patrol a little farther away so as not to disrupt the household's everyday life. The men agreed readily and walked off towards the far end of the street. "All done," Dudley said softly. "Are you planning something?" Harry asked at his side. After watching Dudley gently but firmly shoo the Aurors away with his peculiar methods, Harry had little doubt his cousin was gearing up to do something. I want to work on some spells. With them so close, it is hard to cast, Dudley said simply. All right then, Harry said. He did not think too deeply about it. They headed back into the house. Over the next 2 days, Dudley periodically brought more sweets out to the Aurors. Several new faces rotated in during that time, and all of them ended up accepting Petunia's baking and drifting farther from the Dursley home. It looks like there are 3 shifts rotating regularly. And now every one of them has been bribed, Dudley thought with satisfaction. All he needed now was for Dobby to come with news of an opportunity. That evening, Petunia spoke happily over dinner. Everything is ready for tomorrow. Harry, your birthday party will be perfect, she said. Oh, right, Marge is coming too. She can get to know Harry properly this time. Join us for the party, Vernon said. At the name Marge, Harry's cheerful expression vanished. I told her she should take a fresh look at Harry. He is part of this family now, Vernon said to him. Harry did not reply, only nodded. Dudley frowned slightly. In his memories, Aunt Marge had always treated Harry poorly. As a child, Dudley had never been fond of her either. He had only liked the gifts and money she brought. Chapter 319, Chapter 323, Harry's Birthday. Chapter 323, Harry's Birthday. Oh, right. On that note, I should remind you of something, Vernon said, his face flushing slightly. I told Marge I had sent both of you to a boarding school, so. Aside from himself, no one in the wider Dursley family knew Dudley was a wizard. Vernon could not exactly announce it. He had come to terms with it, but others would not do so easily, and he had no desire for anyone to start calling his son a freak. All right, I understand, Dudley said, pulling a face. Since returning to this world, he had not seen this particular aunt. She had visited once, apparently, but at the time he had been away at Hogwarts, so they had missed each other. I know too. I will try to stay out of her way as much as I can, Harry said with a sigh. Marge was Vernon's sister. Harry might not share blood with her, but he had to think of Dudley and Vernon. He did not want to make things difficult for them. That is one way to handle it. But I will explain your situation to Marge as well, so she can drop some of her prejudices, Vernon said. Thank you, Uncle Vernon, but I doubt it will help much, Harry said, shrugging. He alone knew how much Marge detested him. Vernon realized his words were wishful thinking and let the matter drop. Do not worry, Harry. You have us. Leave it to us, Petunia said. Now that her own son was a wizard, and a very capable one at that, the old visceral revulsion had faded. It was time, she decided, to push Marge into changing her attitude as well. Harry nodded and said no more. He had been looking forward to the party tomorrow. At the mention of Marge, that anticipation dimmed. The next morning, Vernon and Petunia started preparing for Harry's birthday feast. Like Dudley's before it, this party was booked at a 5-star hotel not far from home. Vernon had gone out of his way to invite several well-known investors. He wanted to use this opportunity to secure funding to expand production and take his business to the next level. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, and Harry went to answer it out of habit. Harry, happy birthday, a familiar voice called. A moment later, the sound of someone being swept into a hug reached the hallway. Petunia and Vernon both stiffened and hurried to see what was happening. Dudley, smiling, followed at a more leisurely pace. At the door, Hermione was hugging Harry tightly. She held a wrapped present in one hand. Oh, Harry, I got up at the crack of dawn to get here. Thank goodness I was not too late, she said brightly, handing the gift over. It was a broomstick servicing kit. Harry loved it at once. When Vernon and Petunia saw that Hermione looked perfectly normal, wore no odd robes, and behaved with polite, proper manners, they both relaxed a little. Hello, Uncle, Aunt. I am Hermione Granger, Harry and Dudley's classmate at Hogwarts, she said with a small, courteous smile. Hello. Do come in, Vernon said, doing his best to appear natural. Petunia nodded along. Even though there were 2 wizards in the family now, they were still nervous around unfamiliar witches and wizards. Thank you, Hermione said, following Harry inside. Welcome, Hermione, Dudley said, giving her a quick hug. It is a shame Ron is off in Egypt. Otherwise, the 4 of us would all be together, Harry said happily. Do not mention Ron. He is having so much fun in Egypt, he has practically forgotten about us, Hermione huffed. They went into the sitting room together. The telephone rang shrilly. Vernon, who was closest, went to pick it up. Hello, Vernon Dursley speaking, he said pleasantly. Lately, many calls had come in from clients and partners, so he now habitually answered with a polite introduction. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? I want to speak to Harry Potter. The voice was so loud that everyone in the sitting room heard it through the receiver. Vernon nearly dropped the phone. Good grief, Hermione gasped. Clearly, she had not expected Ron to actually ring Harry to wish him a happy birthday. Harry darted over, snatching the receiver from Vernon's hand. It is me, Ron. You do not have to shout. I can hear you perfectly, he said quickly. This thing really works. Ron crowed. Did you see that? It is brilliant. That is Ron, came Mr. Weasley's voice in the background. Muggles are ingenious. Quick, wish Harry a happy birthday for us, Mrs. Weasley urged. Right then. Harry, happy birthday from all of us. Ron bellowed, as if Harry were a mile away instead of right on the line. Harry hurried to thank him and begged him again to lower his voice. Vernon still looked badly shaken. Dudley had to quietly soothe him with a touch of Beyonder power before he calmed down. Harry and Ron chatted for a few minutes more before hanging up. Ron is impossible. I warned him already, and he still did it like that, Hermione said helplessly. Obviously, she had been the one to give Ron the Dursleys' number, otherwise, he would never have thought of using a telephone. Ron needs you to teach him everything step by step, Dudley said with a laugh. Hermione pulled a face, remembering all too well what it had been like to coach Ron through Wingardium Leviosa. Thump. As they were talking, a dull thud sounded from somewhere above, as though something had landed on the roof. What was that? Harry asked, looking up. Vernon and Petunia were out. Only the three of them were in the house. So what had made that noise? Dobby, Dudley said at once, eyes lighting up. Dobby. What is he doing here? Harry asked, startled. He had no idea Dudley had been in touch with the house elf. Ever since Dudley had freed him, Dobby no longer hovered anxiously around Harry, trying to save his life, instead turning his attention fully towards Dudley. There should be good news, Dudley said. He stood up quickly and led Harry and Hermione upstairs to his room. Sure enough, Dobby was perched on the bed, waiting for him. Oh. Mr. Dursley, tonight is a good chance. The whole Malfoy family is away from the manor. You can use this opportunity to slip inside, Dobby said excitedly. All his work as a spy these past weeks was finally about to pay off. Chapter 320, Chapter 324, An Opportunity Arises. Chapter 324, An Opportunity Arises. Really? Dudley's eyes lit up at once. He had not expected the chance to come this quickly. Yes. The master and mistress are going out to a banquet tonight. They will be gone for at least 4 or 5 hours, and no one will be at home. If you wish to enter the manor, this is the best opportunity, Dobby said, bowing slightly to Harry and Hermione as well. Oh. Dudley, you are really going to Malfoy Manor? Hermione stared, stunned. She had thought Dudley was only speaking hypothetically. She had not imagined he actually meant to do it. That is far too dangerous, Harry could not help saying. If Dobby had not shown up today, he would have had no idea that Dudley had been planning a break-in. There have been some changes at Malfoy Manor recently. I need to see them for myself, Dudley said plainly. But breaking into a pureblood wizard's estate is incredibly dangerous, Hermione said. They will have warded it with all sorts of powerful magic. If any of that is triggered, you could be injured, captured, or even killed. She had read about it in books. There were countless stories of would-be thieves who had tried to infiltrate ancient pureblood estates and never come back out, their deaths unexplained. Whether they fell prey to powerful curses or direct magical attacks, one thing was clear, the magic woven into those old manors and castles was numerous and deadly. A single mistake could be fatal. Even Hogwarts, a school, hid a place as dangerous as the Chamber of Secrets. Who knew what lurked in the ancestral homes of old families? History had no shortage of mad, warped pureblood wizards. Are you really still worried about my strength? Dudley asked with a crooked smile. But Hermione still felt it was wrong, but did not know how to phrase it anymore. Do you need our help? Harry cut in. He could tell Dudley had already decided. Dudley never backed down from a decision once made, so there was no point trying to talk him out of it. All Harry could do was see whether there was any way he could be useful. No. It is your birthday. Go and enjoy your party, Dudley said with a grin. But as you can see, I will probably not be there tonight. That's all right. Do what you need to do, Harry said. Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon might be upset. They have invited a lot of investors to this party for me, he added. It's fine. I will prepare some sweets for them. Even if it is not perfect, it will be enough to help them secure some investments, Dudley said lightly. In that case, see you tonight, Mr. Dursley, Dobby said. Now that Dudley had made his choice, the elf snapped his fingers and vanished. Honestly, I would rather go and help you than deal with Aunt Marge, Harry said wryly. A trip to Malfoy Manor sounded far more appealing than an evening spent under Marge's stare. "Who is that?" Hermione asked, puzzled. "Aunt Marge." "Never mind. You will find out soon enough," Harry said, not in the mood to explain. "Before tonight, I still have some preparations to make. You two keep chatting." "I am going out for a bit," Dudley said. He picked up a box of sweets and stepped outside. The Aurors stationed in the neighborhood for their protection would need a fresh round of bribery, just to be sure. On top of that, he still had to find the right person to copy with Polyjuice. An hour later, Dudley returned to number 4. All the Aurors had been taken care of, and no new ones had appeared. It was still the same faces. He made a point of giving extra sweets to the men Scrimgeour had planted. At the same time, he pulled a single hair from his pocket. Earlier at the station, he had casually plucked it from a random muggle's head. Before heading to Malfoy Manor, he intended to take on that man's appearance. The day passed quickly. Evening came in the blink of an eye. Since Dobby had not arrived yet, Dudley went with the family to Harry's birthday banquet first. While there, he used the time to bribe every investor present, helping his father secure a respectable amount of capital. He also finally met Aunt Marge. She looked just as he remembered, about as fat as Vernon, perhaps even more so. The moment she saw him, she crushed him in a bear hug. Thankfully, Dudley was much stronger now and managed to twist away before she could plant a slobbery kiss on his cheek. As expected, she could not resist picking Harry apart with her usual stream of criticism. This time, though, Vernon and Petunia both stepped in to defend Harry and speak on his behalf, which made things far easier for him. Dudley had been thinking of lightly nudging Marge's thinking with a beyond her ability, but before he could, something outside the window caught his attention. Dobby was hopping up and down in the darkness, trying to get his eye. "I need to go." "You two can handle things here," Dudley murmured to Harry and Hermione. "Do not worry," Harry said at once. Hermione nodded firmly. Dudley slipped out of the banquet hall and headed for the hedge outside. "Are you ready, Mr. Dursley?" Dobby asked. "One moment," Dudley said. He took out a flask of Polyjuice potion and dropped the hair he had pulled from the muggle's head into it. The potion began to seethe at once, bubbling green and yellow. After a few moments, the foam subsided, leaving behind a cupful of thick, yellow-green liquid. The stench wafting off it reminded Dudley of a rotting dustbin. "Merlin, this man smells awful," he muttered, pinching his nose as he took a mouthful. The disgusting taste burned its way down his throat into his stomach, making his stomach heave. He very nearly threw up his dinner there and then. Then the transformation began. He shot up in height, now pushing 1.80 meters. His smooth skin turned coarse, a thick beard sprouted on his cheeks, and his golden hair vanished, replaced by dull brown with a noticeable bald patch on top. In the end, he looked like the perfect specimen of an ordinary middle-aged English muggle. "Not bad," Dudley said, checking himself in a window's reflection before changing into a set of black robes he had prepared in advance. "Not as good as the Faceless, but it will do," he murmured. "That is amazing," Dobby breathed. "Even if you are seen, no one will know who you really are." "Ahem. I am ready." "Let's go," Dudley said in an unfamiliar, gruffer voice. "Very well, Mr. Dursley." "Welcome to Malfoy Manor," Dobby said. He grabbed Dudley's hand and snapped his fingers. Pop darkness rushed in on all sides. Dudley knew the sensation of sight-along apparition all too well by now and rode it out calmly. When his feet touched solid ground again, he found himself standing before an ancient, opulent stone manor. Chapter 321, Chapter 325, Malfoy Manor. Chapter 325, Malfoy Manor. Malfoy Manor was a stately lord's residence, its main house encircled by a meticulously planned garden. Fountains played in the gloom, and white peacocks wandered freely across the lawns. A pair of ornate wrought iron gates stood before Dudley like a boundary between two different worlds. "Mr. Dursley, since this is your first time at Malfoy Manor, I need to lead you inside," Dobby explained. "All right, Dobby. But from now on, you cannot call me Mr. Dursley." "That will give me away," Dudley said. "Then how should Dobby address you?" Dobby looked up at him. "Call me Justiciar," Dudley said. "Yes, Justiciar." "Please follow Dobby." Dobby led him towards the wrought iron gates. Before they even reached them, the house elf lifted a finger and traced a slow line from top to bottom. Hum. A translucent ripple spread out from Dobby's fingertip. The iron bars vibrated faintly, then settled back into stillness. "All done," Dobby said, stepping forward and, under Dudley's gaze, walking straight through the metal as if it were smoke. Dudley copied his pace and posture, striding slowly ahead. The instant he passed through, thick gray mist filled his vision. It felt for a heartbeat as if he had been dropped into an endless, featureless wilderness. Then the world cleared. He now stood on the grounds of Malfoy Manor. Behind him was the wrought iron gate he had just walked through. "This way, please," Dobby said. He led the way while Dudley followed, moving towards the lavish main house. Spirit vision already active, Dudley examined the estate ahead. For some reason, the moment he stepped inside, a faint chill had settled over him. He could not pinpoint its source. Malfoy Manor was not his territory, and he did not know it well. That meant his Justiciar pathway abilities would be slightly constrained here. He could rely on his own powers, but could not draw any extra, environment-based bonuses from the place. His eyes swept the garden. Every hedge and bed had clearly been carefully designed and pruned. Nearby, a fountain bubbled, the liquid stream changing color and shape over time in mesmerizing patterns. From these and other details, Dudley could clearly see traces of magic everywhere. Some enchantments felt fresh, others ancient. He sensed nothing overtly wrong among them and continued after Dobby. Under the night sky, the two of them walked at an unhurried pace. As they passed a strolling white peacock, the bird glanced at Dudley, then lazily turned away and continued its measured walk. "There is no one else in the manor?" Dudley asked. For Dobby to simply waddle along with him like this into Malfoy's grounds was not what he had expected. "No one else," Dobby replied. "Because of what happened before, the master dismissed many servants. There are very few people left in the manor now. Only house elves remain now. Tonight, when the master went to the banquet, he took another house elf with him, so at the moment it is just Dobby here in the manor." Dudley nodded and said nothing more. They kept on towards the great house until they reached the main doors. At the threshold, Dudley did not immediately follow Dobby inside. He paused and examined their surroundings carefully. The doors were carved with elegant lines and reliefs, their style old and dignified. This doorway had likely stood here for a very long time. "Is something wrong, Justiciar?" Dobby asked, puzzled when Dudley continued to linger outside. "There are magical traces here," Dudley said. "What?" But Dobby never knew there was magic here," Dobby stammered. He genuinely had no idea. The door had never, in his memory, triggered any spell. "It is very old magic. I have seen it in Slytherin's notes," Dudley said, his expression turning grave. Hermione had not been wrong. Places like Malfoy Manor tended to be riddled with strange magical traps. A single misstep could expose an intruder. Dudley believed Dobby would not deliberately lead him into danger. That meant the spell on this door was something the house elf was unaware of. He crouched and ran his fingers lightly along the carvings, focusing on one particular line. One segment of the pattern was slightly darker than the rest. It had been carved to resemble a flower petal, but now that he was looking for it, it seemed more like a grotesque eye, staring out at everything around the door. "Spell stand still," Dudley intoned in Hermes. Hum. A subtle, transparent ripple spread out. The darker lines of the carving dulled rapidly, losing their sheen like a flower fading in an instant. "That should do it," Dudley said, straightening. "That is all," Dobby said, stunned. A spell he had never even noticed had been suppressed by Dudley with a single incantation. To him, it was nothing short of incredible. "It was a detection charm," Dudley explained. "Every person who passes through this doorway is logged. If it is their first time entering, the spell triggers and alerts the master of the manor that a stranger has arrived. Beyond that, it does nothing." That was what made such wards so insidious. Aside from notification, they had no obvious effect. Because the method of constructing them had been lost for centuries, most wizards never even thought to look for them. Dudley had only recognized it because of an obscure reference he had found in an ancient Slytherin grimoire. Besides, he added with a small smile, "My spell standstill has some special enhancements. When most people use that spell, they would not get the same result." "Justiciar is amazing," Dobby said, full of awe. Once Dudley was sure there were no other hidden surprises, he stepped through the doorway into the manor proper. The entrance hall was wide and long. Portraits of Malfoy witches and wizards from generations past lined the walls, and nearly every flagstone was covered with an ornate carpet that stretched as far as the eye could see. "No wonder Draco always speaks from on high and drips arrogance," Dudley said quietly. "Growing up in a place like this, it would be hard not to." "Mist, enshroud." He lifted a hand and spoke another of his own spells. This one was not difficult and carried no special mystical properties. It simply summoned fog thick enough to cloak the surroundings. A heavy, colorless mist rolled out of nowhere, smothering the portraits until not a single painted face was visible. The figures in wizarding portraits could move and even possessed a measure of intelligence. Given that, it was best if they did not see him at all. Chapter 322, Chapter 326, The Mirror by the Study Door. Chapter 326, The Mirror by the Study Door. As he walked further in, Dudley passed finely crafted statues and ancient suits of armor. If he had not known he was inside Malfoy Manor, he might have thought he had wandered into a magical museum. The deeper he went, the clearer his understanding of the word luxury became. Every piece of furniture he saw was made from rare and expensive materials. Marble fireplaces, mirrors framed with gold, enormous crystal chandeliers, the Malfoys had spared no expense in displaying their wealth. Justiciar, where would you like to look first? Dobby asked. Lucius's study, Dudley said. One of his main objectives tonight was the Emperor card. Compared to that, even Voldemort's Horcruxes could wait. Very well. Please follow me, Dobby said. He led Dudley towards the study. They moved along a long corridor. In a place like this, Dudley deliberately kept his pace slow. He scanned constantly with spirit vision for any magical traces nearby and relied on his danger sense to catch any details that might otherwise be missed. As a Beyonder on the Justiciar pathway, the more familiar he became with an environment, the better his instincts worked within it. That familiarity would not only help him find what he wanted but also raise his combat effectiveness on this ground. Lucius's banquet was expected to last several hours. There was no need for Dudley to rush. After more than 10 minutes, Dobby finally brought him to a stop outside Lucius's study. Dudley frowned slightly. Set into the wall beside the study door was an old-fashioned mirror with a silver frame. What is that mirror for? Dudley asked cautiously. In both the strange Beyonder world and this magical one, mirrors had never given him a good feeling. Their appearance always carried an ominous edge. This one's location was peculiar as well. Why place a mirror here, outside the study? Dobby does not know what the mirror is for, the elf said, scratching his head. It has been here since Dobby first came to the manor. He was clearly stumped by the question. When you grow so used to a place that your eyes start to slide past its details, even the oddest things can blend in and feel natural. Dudley stood directly before the mirror and studied his reflection carefully. Nothing in the image was twisted. His reflection did not grin strangely back at him. Everything appeared normal. Let us go into the study, Dudley said. Yes, Justiciar. Dobby walked the few meters to the door. The master has placed many spells here. Dobby can break some of them, but the rest will require you, Justiciar, he said. Fine, Dudley said with a nod. Dobby knew his master very well, and he knew almost every enchantment Lucius had laid. Apart from those designed specifically to ward off house elves, he quickly disabled nearly all the rest. Having an inside man really is a blessing, Dudley thought, watching him work with a faint smile. Without Dobby, Dudley could have broken the wards himself, but it would likely have taken at least an hour. That was far from ideal. Once Dobby had done everything he could, he stepped respectfully aside. Dudley moved up to the doorway and inspected the wood and surrounding stonework in detail. Through spirit vision, he could clearly see the remnants of spells etched into the door and wall. Some of them he could identify at a glance. Others he could only pick apart slowly by following basic magical principles and testing interpretations. After a while, he took the Mirror of Erist from his pocket dimension and drew out Slytherin's notebook, then began testing counterspells one by one. With the aid of that powerful magical artifact, his trial and error went far more smoothly. Before long, he had confirmed the effects of several of the embedded spells and found suitable counters for each. Once everything was prepared, Dudley began to chant softly in Hermes. One after another, dispelling and counter charms flowed from his lips. The magic woven into the door weakened and fell away, or else sank into temporary dormancy. About 15 minutes later, he had neutralized all of them. It had not been easy. Forcing wards apart with brute power was the simplest route, but that would have blown his cover instantly. Finding the true counterspells required extensive experimentation and a deep grasp of magical theory, and even then, errors were common. Dudley had only managed it in a single run because Slytherin's notes and the Mirror of Erist had given him so much room to experiment safely until he located the correct answers. Alohomora. He spoke the final charm, and the study door swung open. Dudley lifted his left hand and pushed, stepping inside. The room was large and luxuriously appointed. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes on magic. Many were so old that even Hogwarts's library might not have copies. This was what it meant to be an ancient pureblood family. He let his gaze roam across the study, but did not move hastily. Dobby had mentioned how furious Lucius had been when Draco tried to sneak in here. He had not only locked Draco up but also dismissed a host of servants, all to keep the study's secrets from leaking. That made Dudley certain there were more wards beyond those on the door. Sure enough, after a thorough inspection, he found several magical traps scattered through the room. These, however, were different. Most were binding or restraining spells, with no obvious lethal curses among them. Probably in case Draco tried to come back again, Dudley muttered. For all his anger, Lucius would not go so far as to obliterate his own son or other family members. He would want to leave some margin for error. Dudley spent some time dismantling the wards, then slowly approached Lucius's desk. The moment he reached it, his attention was drawn to a particular book. More precisely, to the bookmark or card tucked inside it. It was a tarot card. One of the major arcana. the Emperor. A desecrated card? Dudley's eyes narrowed. He picked it up with his left hand and studied it closely. Suddenly, his gaze went very deep. After a long moment, he turned his head towards Dobby. Dobby. Since when have I been using my left hand? Chapter 323, Chapter 327, World in the Mirror. Chapter 327, World in the Mirror. What? Dobby stared at him in confusion, not understanding why Dudley had suddenly asked that. Since when have I been using my left hand? Dudley repeated. He was asking Dobby, but he was also asking himself. Dobby frowned in thought. He could not remember when Dudley had started favoring his left hand. He did remember that Dudley's dominant hand was his right. Yet just now, when Dudley had picked up the card, he had used his left. As for exactly when the change had happened, Dobby could not say. I took this Emperor card with my left hand, Dudley murmured. As he spoke, he turned and walked back towards the door. I pushed this door open with my left hand too, he said under his breath. Step by step, he retraced what had happened. Then he left Lucius's study and returned to the corridor outside. His gaze fell on the old mirror beside the door. Is something wrong, Justiciar? Dobby asked, still baffled. Oh, there is something wrong, Dudley said quietly. I have been using my left hand without thinking. But I should be using my right. Do you know what that means, Dobby? I do not understand, Dobby admitted. No matter how he turned it over in his mind, he could not see the issue. Only in a mirror are left and right reversed, Dudley said. He raised his left hand and ran his fingers across the silvered glass before him. Which means we are no longer in the real world. We are inside the world of the mirror, he finished. What? Dobby's eyes went wide. How could he not be in the real world? How could he be inside the mirror? Did such a world really exist? Is it, like the world inside your mirror, Justiciar? Dobby asked cautiously. Dudley shook his head. The world within the mirror of Eriste truly exists. You can think of it as a portion cut away from this one. At its core, it is still part of reality, he said. But the world of a mirror like this is different. It is more like a boundary between illusion and reality. A false world. As he finished speaking, power flared in his hand. Crack. His left fingertip tapped the surface. Fine cracks spiderwebbed out from the point of contact, racing across the glass. Dudley watched the mirror splinter, then looked around. Still no change, he said, eyes narrowing. He had thought breaking the mirror would be enough to escape its world. Clearly, it was not that simple. Whoosh. A black shape flashed down the far end of the corridor, vanishing quickly into the distance. It had looked like a middle-aged man in black robes, moving at great speed. Dudley did not hesitate. He set off after it at once. Dobby, did you see what that was? He asked as he ran. Dobby was still in shock. There should have been no one else in Malfoy Manor. So what had that been? What shook him even more was how familiar the figure had seemed. His great, round eyes turned to Dudley. It looked like you, Dobby said, voice trembling. So I did not imagine it, Dudley said calmly. The fleeting shadow had been identical to the men he currently resembled under the polyjuice potion. Blazing flames, he incanted suddenly. Scarlet fire surged out, washing over the ancient, opulent furnishings on either side. Oh! Dobby yelped, jumping aside, stricken by the sight. He had never expected Dudley to cast a fire spell out of nowhere. Watching the manor he knew so well go up in flames cut at his heart. But then his expression changed. Despite the tongues of red fire licking over them, none of the furnishings actually caught alight. It was as though the flames were only burning their phantoms, not the solid matter. Do you remember what I said, Dobby? We are not in the real world right now, Dudley reminded him. The fire's behavior only confirmed his suspicion. So, should we chase and catch that man we just saw? Dobby asked, thinking aloud. Under normal circumstances, yes, Dudley said. But I have no desire to waste time here. His lips curved into a thin smile. He glanced around, then raised his voice. Let us out. Otherwise, I will simply destroy this place. His words echoed through the empty manor, but no one answered. Nothing around them changed. Then excuse me, Dudley said coldly. The magic item behind this illusion was intriguing, and part of him disliked the idea of destroying it outright. But he did not have the time to humor it. Fiendfire. He whispered the incantation in Hermes. Hum. Terrifying flames erupted around him, far more powerful than the blazing flames from before. The heat was so intense that Dobby instinctively scuttled back several steps. In the blink of an eye, the firestorm roared outward. This time, everything it touched burned. Stone walls twisted and cracked, explosions rang out as paneling and furniture blew apart. In the wake of the cursed fire, nothing remained but cinders. Dudley watched as the space around him began to warp. The air shook with the sound of shattering glass, and the entire manor quivered. This mirror really is impressive. It can even hold up against fiend fire for a while, he muttered. His eyes hardened. He clenched his fist, letting his spirituality surge through his body. Muscles along his back and waist knotted as he twisted and drove his fist down. Boom. The blow shook the entire manor. A web of cracks spread out from his knuckles, splintering the floor until it was nearly pulverized. The Black Emperor Pathway's monstrous physical might was on full display. Dudley did not stop. He hammered several more punches into the nearby walls. Crash. Under the combined assault of fiend fire and raw force, the manor of Malfoy's mirror world collapsed. Walls buckled and fell, ceilings gave way, and the structure disintegrated around them. Dudley opened his eyes and found himself once more facing the old mirror in the real corridor. The glass was now split with deep fractures punched outward from the center. Through the broken surface, red fire still burned, and the surrounding frame had sagged and warped, half melted by the heat. Chapter 324, Chapter 328, The Emperor Card. Chapter 328, The Emperor Card. It is over. The fiend fire guttered out, and the mirror before Dudley shattered completely. Behind him, Dobby jerked awake. Just now, what just happened? He gasped, drawing a sharp breath and looking around. He remembered seeing Malfoy Manor twist and warp under the assault of fiend fire, remembered walls and ceilings punched apart by Dudley's fists, and the entire manor finally collapsing into sooty black ruin. Everything just now was an illusion that the mirror created for us, Dudley said. What a pity. If time were not so tight, it might have been fun to play a little cat and mouse game with it. He ran his fingers over the now dead glass. By rights, the proper way to handle such an object would have been to track down the double that looked exactly like him and, through that, find the exit from the mirror world. But that would have taken too long, perhaps hours, and Dudley did not have that kind of time to spare. So he had taken the brute force route instead, using fiend fire and raw power to smash the mirror outright. It truly was a remarkable artifact. It could drag someone into the phantasmal world within it without their even noticing, and keep them there for a long time without them sensing that anything was wrong. If Dudley had not caught the detail about his left hand, he might really have taken the card and walked straight out of Malfoy Manor, returned to number 4, and begun researching it in peace. In reality, he would have still been standing right here, staring into the mirror. When Lucius and the others came back, the consequences for a Dudley still lost in illusion would have been ugly. Come on. We can head for Lucius's study properly now. He cast one last glance at the ruined glass, then turned and walked the few meters to the study door. Activating spirit vision, he carefully examined the magic on the frame. Exactly the same as in the mirror. That makes things easier. Dobby, take down the spells, Dudley said. Yes, Justiciar. Dobby quickly set to work, unpicking the charms woven into the door one by one. Dudley did not stand idle either. He had already dismantled these enchantments once inside the mirror world. Doing it again posed no problem. In less than 2 minutes, all of the magic on the doorway had been neutralized. Dudley pushed the door open with his right hand and stepped inside. Just as in the mirrored version, Lucius's study was broad and richly appointed, with bookshelves running from floor to ceiling on every wall. The moment he crossed the threshold, Dudley's gaze flicked to the desk. That was where he had found the Emperor card earlier. Nothing, he murmured. This time, there was no sign of the card that had appeared in the mirror. So what is in the mirror does not necessarily match reality, he said with a hint of regret. He began methodically clearing the remaining magic in the study and searching for likely hiding places. I do not know whether the master has put the card somewhere else, or is carrying it on him, Dobby said as he checked shelves and corners. Normally, the card lay on the desk. The absence of it now was troubling. Emperor card, Accio, Dudley incanted, flicking his wand. Nothing in the room stirred. His eyes narrowed. Either Lucius put an anti-summoning charm on it, or that really is a desecrated card, he said under his breath. A desecrated card did more than distort divination. Its high level also made it immune to most spells. A simple summoning charm would have no effect whatsoever. Dudley paced the study for a while, then came to a halt in front of the desk. Several of the drawers were sealed with magic. Dobby had already opened a few of them for him, but they contained only Lucius's personal valuables. Nothing Dudley cared about. Justiciar, do you want me to open the rest? Dobby asked. No, Dudley said. He stood still for a moment with his eyes closed. Somewhere nearby, he could faintly sense a connection tugging at his awareness. Wingardium Leviosa. He spoke softly, and Lucius's massive wooden desk lifted gently off the floor and floated aside. Dudley crouched and examined the carpet. There you are, he said, the corner of his mouth tightening into a smile. He drove his fist down. The carpet and the stone beneath it shattered together. Fragments flew up and away under the force of the blow, exposing a hidden compartment in the floor. A small, ornate wooden box lay inside. Dudley picked it up and checked it over. There was only a simple sealing charm on the lid, which he dispelled with a casual flick. Click. He flipped the box open. Laid out on fine silk inside was a single card. A Major Arcana tarot card, showing a richly dressed man. Along the bottom was a single word, Emperor. That is it. That is the card, Dobby said at once, his voice bright with excitement. The instant Dudley took it in his hand, a line of verse surfaced unbidden in his mind. He rose to his feet, drew a deep breath, and murmured the incantation in Hermes. His low voice rolled through the study, and a faint glow seeped from the card. When the last syllable left his tongue, the tarot card finally revealed its true face. On the card was a middle-aged man in magnificent robes. Dudley stared at that face, feeling a ripple pass through his heart. Roselle Gustave, he breathed. There was no mistake. The figure now depicted was Roselle the Emperor, a legend of that other uncanny world. The desecrated card was his work. At the same time, arcane symbols and glyphs floated across Dudley's sight. The potion formula for the Black Emperor pathway appeared clearly before him, along with related advancement rituals. Click. At that very moment, the door to the study swung open. The excitement on Dobby's face vanished, replaced instantly by horror. Dudley's eyes narrowed slightly and shifted to the threshold. Lucius Malfoy stepped in at an unhurried pace. He glanced at Dudley, then at the Emperor card already transformed in Dudley's hand, and a cold smile curved his lips. So that is how this card must be opened, he said softly. Thank you for your help, stranger. His gaze slid to Dobby. And you, Dobby. I never thought the one to betray me would be you. Dobby stared at him in terror. Lucius might no longer be his master, but the weight of years of authority still pressed on his chest, making it hard to breathe. Lucius, Dudley said, looking at the blond man before him. Chapter 325, Chapter 329, Dreamscape Interrogation. Chapter 329, Dreamscape Interrogation. Who are you? Lucius stared at Dudley. He did not recognize the middle-aged man in front of him. There was not a single familiar feature in that face. Does it matter who I am? Dudley's gaze remained calm. He already had the desecrated card. Being discovered now or 5 minutes later made no difference. This card. Where did you get it? He asked, turning the Black Emperor card over in his hand. He was far more interested in the origin of the card than in the fact that he had been caught. Lucius actually laughed, incredulous. This wizard had broken into his home to steal from him, been caught red-handed, and still had the gall to question him about the card's origin. It was absurd. You think you are very amusing, do you? Lucius said coldly. He drew his wand from his cane and leveled it at Dudley. Speak. Who sent you? What secret is this tarot card hiding? He demanded. The intruder's target had been obvious, the card. He clearly knew it was special. He had even opened it to reveal its true face with ease, something Lucius had failed to do, no matter how hard he tried. There had to be some earth-shaking secret behind it. Lucius, has no one ever told you it is extremely rude to point your wand at someone? Dudley said, glancing at the wand. Answer me. Lucius snapped, eyes narrowing. Cruck. Exile. Dudley cut himself off and unleashed a beyonder ability instead. A formless gale burst into existence and hurled Lucius backwards, slamming him into the bookcase behind with a heavy thud. Expelliarmus. A streak of red light flared and struck Lucius squarely. His wand flew high into the air and dropped neatly into Dudley's waiting hand. You. Lucius lay on the floor, face bloodless. He had not felt Dudley cast a single spell. One moment, he had been standing, the next, a phantom wind had sent him flying. He had not seen the disarming charm either. In a single exchange, he had been utterly routed and disarmed. If memory serves, using an unforgivable curse on a human earns you a one-way ticket to Azkaban, Dudley said lightly, toying with Lucius's wand. Are you looking for a place to stay? Just, who are you? Lucius growled, his face a mask of rage and fear. This man was far stronger than he had imagined, and more importantly, his methods were far stranger. Lucius had never encountered such tactics in all his years in the magical world. If Dudley had been holding a wand and pointing it at him from the start, Lucius would never have been so careless. But it was far too late now. His opponent was a wizard highly proficient at wandless, wordless magic, a kind of power Lucius had never seen before. Dudley turned the wand with easy elegance and aimed it back at Lucius. Tell me where you got this card, he said. You really do not want to find out what Crucio feels like. At that, what little color remained drained from Lucius's face. His already pale skin went chalk white. His lips trembled as he stared up at Dudley. He bitterly regretted coming to deal with this intruder alone, without calling for support. He had not wanted anyone else to know about the card. Confinement. Dudley flicked the wand. An invisible wall snapped into place around the study, sealing it off from the outside world. Crucio. He did not hesitate. For someone like Lucius, there was no need to hold back. Aya. A ragged scream tore from Lucius's throat as his body contorted. His face twisted, his limbs jerked, and his torso bowed in on itself as agony tore through every nerve. Stop, stop. He gasped, words broken by pain. Dudley twitched the wand minutely, ending the curse. I will give you one chance, he said. I bought it from a dark wizard, Lucius panted, voice shaking. Cold sweat poured down his forehead. Even a moment under the Cruciatus curse had left him wishing for death. He never wanted to experience it again. Where? Dudley pressed. I in France. A dark wizard in France. I went to Paris last month and met him there. He was selling dark artifacts, and this card was among them, Lucius blurted out. He did not dare hesitate. The wand in Dudley's hand was still pointed at his chest. At first I did not notice anything special about it, Lucius went on, swallowing hard. But during an inspection, I found the card could not be destroyed. Then I suspected it had been enchanted with a powerful spell. No matter what I tried, I could not uncover its true secret. Dudley fell silent for a moment, thinking. Why buy it at all, he suddenly asked. A single tarot card, bought alone and without its deck, made little sense. No one with half a brain would waste their money on that for no reason. Especially not someone like Lucius, who never so much as got out of bed without profit in mind. Lucius's breath hitched. He glanced fearfully at Dudley. Still not willing to talk. Dudley's eyes hardened. I will. I will. Lucius cried quickly as he saw the wand lift again. It was because, aside from the card, there were a few other dark artifacts that interested me. So I bought the lot together. Hearing that, Dudley's thoughts moved at once. If something had been placed for sale alongside a desecrated card and labeled a dark artifact, there was a high chance it was no mere cursed trinket but a sealed item, and not a low-level one either. Where are those artifacts now? He asked. I sold them, Lucius said, voice trembling. The ministry has been cracking down on dark items lately. I had no choice. I had to get rid of them. You did not keep a single one. Dudley's eyes narrowed. He kept a brooch. I remember, Dobby said suddenly. Dubby. Lucius roared, turning a murderous look on the house elf. He had forgotten there was a traitorous elf in the room. You are not very honest, are you? Dudley said mildly. Lying has a price, Lucius. In that case. He swung Lucius's wand up again. Crucio. The unforgivable curse fell upon him a second time. Chapter 326, Chapter 330, Clash. Chapter 330, Clash. Screams rose and fell, but they echoed only within the study, unable to pass beyond its tightly sealed walls. Enough, enough. Please. I beg you. Lucius lay on the floor, shaking uncontrollably and begging for mercy. He truly could not endure any more. He had always been the one to use this curse on others. No one had ever dared cast it on him, let alone subject him to it again and again. Dobby, watching Lucius writhe and howl, simply turned his head away so he would not have to see. This time, the Cruciatus curse had lasted a full minute. When the minute was up, Dudley lifted it. Well. Ready to talk now. He tapped Lucius's cheek with the Malfoy wand as he spoke. A reminder, every time you lie, you get another dose of Crucio, he said. This round was 1 minute. Next time will be 2. After that, 5, and so on. I am very curious how long you can last. His tone was calm, almost lazy, and there was even a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. He looked for all the world like a courteous gentleman out of an old pure-blood portrait. But in Lucius's ears, every word sounded like the whisper of a devil. I will talk. Lucius gasped. He was spent from the torture, but he had no choice except to answer. I am listening, Dudley said. He flicked the wand. A soft sofa glided over from nearby and settled behind him. He sat down and arranged himself as if to listen to a story. I gave that brooch to Narcissa, my wife, Lucius stammered. What sort of brooch? Dudley asked. Black, with a red gemstone on it, very ornate. Lucius replied. Dudley searched his memory but could not recall any sealed artifact that fit that description. The eerie Beyonder world held many sealed items, and he did not know them all. Where is Narcissa now? She will be back later, Lucius said. Dudley stared at him. So quick to sell out his own wife. Or was Lucius angling for something else? Sleep in peace, Dudley said suddenly. A soft light fell over Lucius. His eyes slid shut, and he sank into a deep slumber. At the same instant, Dudley closed his own eyes, leaned back into the cushions, and stepped into Lucius's dreamscape. At first, everything around him was hazy, but he could just make out the drawing room of the manor. He walked forward and saw Lucius sitting slack-faced on a sofa by the fireplace, lost in thought. "Answer my questions," Dudley said. "First. Besides that card, what other dark artifacts did you buy? How many in total, and who did you sell them to?" "I bought 5 items in all, including the card," Lucius said dully. "I kept the card for myself, gave the black brooch to Narcissa, and sold the other 3 dark artifacts, for the time being, to Borgin and Burke's in Nocturne Alley." Dudley's eyes narrowed slightly. He had not yet gone to speak with Borgin about dark items. "Describe in detail how you acquired this tarot card," he said. Lucius recounted the entire process, including why he had gone to France in the first place. It did not differ much from his earlier story. Dudley asked a few more questions, and Lucius answered them all mechanically, but nothing of real value emerged. "What other important things has Voldemort entrusted to you?" Dudley asked, slipping in the matter of Horcruxes. "He has not given me much. I usually keep it in the hidden chamber beneath the drawing room," Lucius said. "A hidden chamber under the drawing room?" Dudley's gaze sharpened. "So that is where Malfoy Manor's real secrets lie," he thought. "I will have to come back another time." Aloud, he asked, "You just said Narcissa will be back later. You are not afraid I will go after her?" "Narcissa has invited several pureblood families to visit," Lucius replied. "When they realize something is wrong, they will think of a way to rescue me." "I see," Dudley said with a cold snort. Lucius really did know how to hedge his bets. Just as he was about to continue his questioning, Dudley suddenly felt someone tugging at his hand in the waking world. He pulled free of the dream at once and opened his eyes. "Justiciar, Justiciar." Dobby was shaking his hand. "What is it?" Dudley asked. "The manor's front gates just opened," Dobby said quickly. As someone who worked here, he could immediately feel when Malfoy Manor's main entrance was thrown wide. "Is Narcissa back?" Dudley roused his spirituality and swept his senses outward. At once, he detected several people approaching the manor house. "Time to go," he said. "Dobby, we are leaving." Lucius had already uncovered Dobby's betrayal. Leaving him here was no longer an option. "Yes, Justiciar," Dobby said, a look of longing flashing across his face. He had finally completed his mission. Now he could leave this place for good and live a truly free life. Dudley glanced at Lucius lying on the floor, thought for a moment, and chose to leave him alive for now. A man who collapsed to his knees at the first sign of danger could be useful someday. Of course, that was only because Lucius posed no threat to Dudley's core interests at the moment. Otherwise, he would already have been erased from this world. "Release," Dudley said. He dispelled the confinement on the study, then took Dobby's hand. Apparition. Crack. With a soft sound, he and Dobby vanished from Lucius's study. About a minute later, clear footsteps sounded outside, along with cheerful conversation and laughter. Lucius should be in his study. "I will fetch him," came Narcissa's voice. She walked to the study door and knocked. "Lucius, we are home," she called. No response came, even after a long pause. Lately, Lucius had forbidden anyone from entering the study, even her. She hesitated to open the door on her own. Then her gaze snagged on the shattered silver mirror nearby, and her expression changed at once. She whipped out her wand, forced the door open, and rushed inside. "Someone, come quickly." Moments later, a terrified scream rang through the manor. Chapter 327, Chapter 331, Gellert Grindelwald. Chapter 331, Gellert Grindelwald. In Surrey, on a dim side street near Little Whinging, there was a soft crack. A man in black robes stepped out of the shadows. "Dobby, what are you planning to do now?" Dudley asked, glancing at the house elf at his side. Dobby's face took on a thoughtful look. He was completely free now. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, he suddenly did not quite know what to do with himself. "I think I will travel for a while first, then decide what to do next," he said after a pause. "All right. But you must be careful. Lucius will not let you go so easily," Dudley said. "Dobby understands," Dobby said, nodding. "Here. 100 galleons. That should last you for some time." "Take it," Dudley said, pulling a heavy handful of gold from his pocket and offering it over. "This." Dobby hesitated, not taking the money. "This is your payment for going undercover at Malfoy Manor. We agreed on this, did we not?" Dudley said, pressing the galleons into his hand. "And you will need money if you are going to travel." "Thank you, Mr. Dursley," Dobby said, eyes bright with emotion. If you run into danger or anything else, remember you can come to me at any time, Dudley added. Dobby promised he would, snapped his fingers, and vanished. Once Dobby was gone, Dudley did not hurry away. He stayed in the alley and waited for the polyjuice potion to wear off. After a while, the muscles under his skin rippled. A few minutes later, his appearance returned to normal, and he changed back into his own clothes. Apparition, he murmured. With a twist, he appeared back in his bedroom at number 4, Privet Drive. The familiar surroundings eased something inside him. He sat on the bed and drew out the Emperor card. The desecrated card. Never thought it would show up in this world as well, he said softly, looking at the illustration. The card conferred resistance to divination and prophecy, held the potion formulas for its pathway, and could attract beyonder characteristics of the same pathway. For Dudley, though, most of those functions were of limited use. He already had the necessary beyonder characteristics within him and only needed time to fully digest them. Potion formulas meant nothing to him now. As for drawing in more justiciar traits, that was even less relevant. In this magical world, there were no matching beyonder characteristics to attract. The only part with any value was the anti-divination, anti-prophecy effect. Even that mattered little. His own high status as a beyonder already granted him a similar degree of protection. Besides, from what he knew of the magical world, divination here was still in its infancy. Almost no one was capable of making accurate prophecies or targeted readings about him. It might at least be handy for projecting my spirit. More convenient than the Trunsoist brass book, he mused. After thinking for a moment, he put the Emperor card away. Then he opened his bedroom door and went downstairs. The party is not over yet, he muttered. By the time on the clock, they should have been home already. He frowned and waited a while longer, but there was still no sign of Harry or the others. Apparition. He disapparated again and appeared just outside the hotel. Most of the guests had already gone. Dudley followed the corridor back to the main hall, soon reaching the room where Harry's birthday dinner had been held. What happened? He asked as he stepped into chaos. The floor was strewn with leftovers, smashed plates, and bowls. Several tables lay in pieces on the ground. Only Harry and Hermione were still in the hall. His parents were nowhere to be seen, and there were no hotel staff around either. "Oh, Dudley, you are finally back," Hermione said, sagging with relief when she saw him. Part of that relief was simple: Dudley had made it back alive from Malfoy Manor. The rest was the knowledge that someone was finally here who could take charge of this mess. Harry, catching sight of him, pressed his lips together and looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Harry and your aunt had a bit of a row and, blew up one of the tables," Hermione said helplessly. "I am sorry. I did not mean to. I just could not control myself," Harry said, head hanging. The Dursleys had been good to him these past 2 years. He had never wanted this to happen. But in that moment, he had been so furious that his magic had slipped free. "What exactly did Aunt Marge say?" Dudley asked, frowning. Harry's emotions were usually steady. For him to lose control of his magic like that said a lot about how far he had been pushed. "She insulted Harry's parents," Hermione said quietly. "Said his bad blood was inherited from them. And she said." She trailed off, unable to repeat the rest. "I see," Dudley said with a nod. He looked at Harry. "Blowing up a table is nothing. You have been more restrained than Seamus, honestly." The tension in the air eased. At the reminder of Seamus's mishaps, both Hermione and Harry could not help but smile. "Where is everyone?" Dudley asked. "They went to their rooms. Your parents thought it best to give Aunt Marge some space to calm down," Hermione said. Dudley nodded. Keeping Harry and Marge apart for now was definitely the right call. "How did things go at Malfoy Manor?" Harry asked, quickly steering the topic away. "Well enough. Though Lucius did catch me," Dudley said. "What?" Harry and Hermione yelped together. They could not imagine how "well enough" and "Lucius caught me" fit into the same sentence. "It is fine. It just means Dobby cannot stay at the manor as a spy," Dudley explained. "I gave him some money. He has gone off traveling." "And did you get what you wanted?" Harry asked. "I did," Dudley said. "Though if I get the chance, I will probably need to visit Malfoy Manor again." Harry and Hermione exchanged a look. Was Dudley getting addicted to breaking into the Malfoys' home? "I will go check on Aunt Marge and suggest she head home tomorrow. That way, we will not have to deal with her in the days after," Dudley said, turning towards the stairs. He had barely stepped out of the hall when that eerie sensation of being watched settled onto him. It was a feeling he knew well. He had experienced the same thing leaving King's Cross Station. Chapter 328, Chapter 332, Grindelwald's Invitation. Chapter 332, Grindelwald's Invitation. Dudley's pupils narrowed slightly. That mysterious blonde man again. Back at the station, he had only caught a glimpse, a man with golden hair watching him from a distance. The rest of the details had been lost. Now that same familiar sense of being watched had returned. It was almost certainly the same man. He kept his expression smooth and walked on as if nothing were wrong, mind turning over possible responses. Soon, he passed through the corridor and stepped into a large hall. The ceiling here was open to the upper floor, a huge crystal chandelier hanging above. A balustrade ran along the second floor, giving a clear view down into the space below. Here, the feeling of being observed grew even stronger. Confinement, Dudley murmured in Hermes, only in his thoughts. Invisible, transparent walls sprang up around the edges of the hall, sealing the entire area off from the rest of the hotel. Anti-apparition jinx. He followed at once with a second spell to block disapparition. He remembered clearly how fast the men had reacted last time. Dudley had barely turned his head before the stranger vanished by apparition. This time, he had no intention of giving his opponent that chance. Swish. Following the line of the gaze he felt on his back, Dudley looked up towards the second-floor railing. A middle-aged man stood there. Golden hair, deep-set eyes. His face looked gaunt and worn, but the lines of his bones still hinted at striking features. In his youth, he must have been very handsome. "Who are you?" Dudley asked, ice cold. The man did not seem surprised that Dudley had noticed him. He made no move to flee. "Dudley Dursley," he said instead, lifting his chin slightly as he pronounced the name. Dudley's eyes narrowed. From this man, he could sense a faint, real danger. For the Dudley of today, that was highly unusual. As a dual-sequence 6 Beyonder, he held an overwhelming advantage over almost any wizard. He rarely felt a true threat from them. Yet this stranger set his instincts on edge. At present, only Dumbledore gave him that same feeling. Perhaps Voldemort might as well, but not the half-dead shadow he had once been. Only a Voldemort who had regained a measure of his former power. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Gellert Grindelwald," the man said, a faint smile curving his lips as he spoke calmly. "So it is you," Dudley said, eyes narrowing. In an instant, he understood why this man radiated danger. This was the previous dark wizard who had shaken the magical world. Even Dumbledore had found him a thorny opponent. "It seems Albus has mentioned me to you," Grindelwald said lazily. Something flickered across Dudley's face. He had noticed that Grindelwald had not used Dumbledore's surname, but his given name. In the modern wizarding world, that was rare. Out of respect and courtesy, nearly everyone called him Professor Dumbledore or Headmaster Dumbledore. Very few living witches or wizards had the standing to address him by name alone. Using a first name carried a sense of intimacy, the sort of habit that usually only existed between close friends. Dudley, for example, would never call Hermione by her surname. Yet standing before him was the dark wizard Dumbledore had defeated decades ago. Hearing Albus in that man's mouth told Dudley at once that the relationship between them held more than the history book suggested. He also remembered the brief, complicated expression that had crossed Dumbledore's face in the headmaster's office when Grindelwald had come up in conversation. "Are you very surprised to see me?" Grindelwald asked with an elegant smile. "Somewhat. May I ask what business brings you to me?" Dudley kept his eyes fixed on him. Given the man's history of plunging the wizarding world into chaos, Dudley could not afford carelessness. He was not especially afraid, though. With his current strength, even if he could not defeat Grindelwald, surviving him should not be too difficult. Then, abruptly, his heart gave a tight, painful beat. He was not the only one in this hotel. His aunt and uncle were here too. They were ordinary people. A single uncontrolled spell could snuff out their lives as easily as candles. "You do not look particularly frightened," Grindelwald observed. "Level-headed. No wonder Albus speaks so highly of you." This boy was only 13, yet even after seeing him, there was no panic, no terror in his eyes. He simply stood and spoke calmly. Grindelwald found that genuinely intriguing. "We are under the Ministry's protection. Aurors are stationed not far from here. If you attack me, they will notice very quickly," Dudley said, drawing a slow breath. It was a warning, do not raise your wand lightly. "I noticed them," Grindelwald said with a soft chuckle. "But if I wished to kill you, you would already be dead. I have heard from Albus that you possess extraordinary magical talent, enough to shock even him," he went on. "So I wanted to see for myself what the boy he praises so highly actually looks like." He studied Dudley from head to toe. "Seeing you in person. You are indeed different." Dudley stayed silent, simply watching him. If his opponent made the slightest wrong move, he would respond at once. All the while, his Beyonder powers had already begun to work. Corruption was slowly, steadily gnawing at Grindelwald's being. "Strictly speaking, this is not our first meeting," Grindelwald continued. Last time was at King's Cross Station. I only glanced at you, yet you noticed at once. Very sharp senses. Tonight is the same. The moment I saw you, you must have felt me. You did not react rashly, but waited until you reached this hall to confront me. Let me guess. You have sealed this space to prevent my escape, have you not? Let me see. Anti-apparition jinx, and another power I do not recognize, locking the space entirely. Impressive. Even for me, slipping out of here now would be difficult. He spoke in an unhurried tone, as if chatting to an old acquaintance. What exactly do you want? Dudley asked. I want to invite you to join us, Grindelwald said. Together, we will build a world that belongs to wizards. What do you say? His smile widened, and a mad confidence burned in his eyes.